All right, finally, we are live once again after a nice break. Once again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are listening to this. Welcome to Strange Trek with the Unpopular Black Gamer, aka Dante. I am, of course, your host, and I'm always accompanied by my good friend Patrick. Say hello, sir.
Hey everybody, glad to be back. Glad to be well. Glad to be here.
So we took a time off for a few weeks. One, we had Mother's Day. Um, I don't know if a lot of y'all know my mother's spouse passed away recently. So I've been like hyper focused on her. So I really wanted to take the time off for Mother's Day to be there for her, since it's being the first Mother's Day without her spouse. And then after that, we both got sick.
Yeah, yeah.
So, not taking away from
And
Patrick, Patrick also took time to be with his mom as well. Uh,
hmm
I at least one
Fortunately,
of
was not sick then, but
was
definitely
not
in the
sick then.
intervening weeks, got
But
sick.
then the next weekend, we planned to have this particular topic to talk about, and then Patrick got sick, and then the weekend after that, I got sick. So that's just what happens with real life, and then we both have, of course, daytime jobs. But we are here. We are back with Strange Track. I have my nice drink to talk about this topic. Patrick, you have yours?
Cheers. I have mine.
Cheers, sir. All right. But this time around, I'm going to make sure to be a lot better than during the court battle, where Patrick,
You
for
did
all
fine.
intents and purposes, whooped my ass. Uh,
You did fine. You
I
took the hardest
I
argument.
know. In
Did the best you
hindsight,
could with it.
going back and like listening to the episode, I was just like, yeah, I did take the hardest
hmm
part of that topic. So, and with me not being a practicing lawyer myself, um, that was probably the toughest to defend. So,
Definitely.
the next time we do another court episode, I'm gonna take the other side. I'm sorry, I didn't take the easiest route. I need my confidence to be built back up. All right.
Definitely. No, like I said off screen, I will gladly take the argument that you don't want to do, or the harder argument, or whatever, because the 3 years of law school has broken my brain and soul to the point where it's like, yeah, I'll make an argument for almost anything.
And the funny thing is, you said that, and my thought process was, I can defend something better if I really believe in it. But I learned after the fact that I was just like, oh no, I actually could have argued the opposite probably very well too.
Yeah, it's an odd thing. That's kind of like the first thing law school takes away from you is that belief that you like have to believe in your argument, and it's like it's a good and bad thing. Like it's a very double-edged sword,
to,
but a
to
very necessary thing.
to your point, soul crushing in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this time
But
around, we're not going to do another court episode. We'll have another one. We have a number of topics for the court episode, and we plan to do that later, probably another month or two before we do another one.
hmm
But we do have a string of topics that we do want to get into that um, are going to be a little bit on the heavier side and less comedic. So we have those coming up in the month of June, and then me and Patrick are going to discuss what July is going to look like. But we did discuss a little bit of what our next few topics are going to be about. But however, this particular topic today, we want to discuss the most useless character or characters, plural, in Star Trek. And when I thought of this episode, this is one of my topics that I put on the list. When I thought of this, I looked at it as the definition of useless would be if you took this character out of the episode, series, uh, heck, the whole pantheon of Star Trek, really, uh, would this change anything drastically about said episode, said series, or the entirety of Star Trek? And Patrick, do you agree with me on this particular premise, this definition?
I think I think generally I agree with that. Like if I had to take a giant step back and look at what the topic of uselessness would be, um, that would be it. I ended up getting stuck in kind of like the particulars of
Mm-hmm.
how to be useless as a character. I'm gonna clear my throat now on air because, like I said, we're getting over being sick. Okay. Sorry, internet. Um, and I ended up with like 5 ways to be useless that I think nest under like what you're saying, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly didn't take a step back to look at the big picture like you did until now. So I feel like you can be useless because the writers did you dirty.
That's
Kind of
true.
like we were talking about, or sometimes like you just get done dirty by the writers and you
Worf
end up.
or Deanna Troy in the
Mm-hmm.
first few 4 or 5 seasons of TNG.
Yeah, actually, when we get to it, Troy's situation with the writers and Neelix's situation with the writers has actually made me gain some empathy for Neelix as being a
Really?
useless character. Yeah, which is
Really?
going to be a shocker to you, but yeah, I had when I was thinking about this last night, I had like a connection in my brain, like a couple of neurons linked up, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be as hard on Neelix as I could. So I'll get to that there.
So, like, I kind of
Or do
want
you want me
to
to do it
start off
now?
with that. Like, like
Oh, okay,
the
okay.
fact that you brought that up, I kind of want to start off with that because I knew on your list you were going to say Neelix. I knew that was going to be one of them, and
Yeah,
we've had this discussion before where I feel like that Neelix isn't a useless character. I actually like the character. A lot of people in Star Trek don't, though. Like, there's a
yeah.
lot of people in Star Trek that like. I don't know if it's on the same level as Wesley Crusher, but they really don't like the Neelix character in Voyager.
Yeah, and I tried not to ding people for like being annoying, right?
Yeah,
Like, or
yeah.
just not my cup of tea as a character. Um, what happened, and I'll get to the other ones real quick right after I say
Mm-hmm.
this, because I'm sure you're going to want to unpack it and all that stuff. What happened is I started to think about what Neelix was supposed to be on the show early on. And he's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be the guy that has like the foreknowledge and knows all this stuff and all that stuff. But you end up in a situation where if someone already knows all the answers, you don't have an episode, right? There's no drama, there's no mystery, there's no anything. And so he got nerfed a lot to just not knowing what was going on, even though his whole point on being on the ship
Mm-hmm.
um, was to know
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And when I was writing down about Troy, I was like, that's how the writers did her dirty. Because she was supposed to be able to read minds, essentially, or be empathetic enough to feel the feelings of what people are going on. But the only way to have drama is to not know what was going on. So they kept nerfing her. And it's like, well, he seems apprehensive, Captain. And when like everyone on the bridge could see it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't totally read his thoughts or whatever she would say. And I'm like, oh, it's the same issue. They're both supposed to have like foreknowledge, but the writers didn't build on that. They were just like, well, anytime I don't want foreknowledge in an episode, I'll just make it like they don't know anything or
But
their powers aren't working or
that's a
something like
good
that.
point to point out, especially with Deanna Troy's character, and the fact that she could not necessarily her empathic abilities was kind of like uh, cut in half as a Betazoid. She couldn't necessarily read minds
Mm-hmm.
unless it was another Betazoid that she was like connected with. But she
Yeah,
really
she
like
wasn't telepathic.
exactly she could just sense feelings. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like they did that a lot when it came to Vulcans. Vulcans have the ability to be telepathic, but uh, uh, in order to like kind of nerf their abilities, they made it to where Vulcans are um, based upon their logic and their society. They don't read people's minds without their express permission. So
Right, exactly.
which was the ability to nerf them and not be like, oh, well, this case, like, if everybody had a Vulcan on board, like, they could just read the person's mind and be like, oh, Captain, he's lying.
Yeah,
Like,
there'd never be any issue, right? There's
exactly.
actually there's actually three ships here that are here to attack us as opposed to one. We should leave and just
Yes.
avoid all the issues. Like, there's no drama if that happens. And so thinking about that made me actually go like, you know what? I'm being a little hard on Neelix because they did put him in the corner. Writers out there, when you give someone a superpower, whether it's a real superpower like Deanna Troy's, her empathic abilities, or a constructed one where like this person's just supposed to know everything that's going on,
Hmm.
like don't just nerf them if you don't want that to happen in the
Yes.
episode. It makes them look pathetic.
Yes. But what I will say, and I want to unpack this, because uh, even though you had your epiphany about Neelix, I still want to point out like what made you feel like before you had your epiphany, why he was a useless.
Yeah, well, and now because I've built some empathy for him, I don't know how totally useful he still is.
Okay,
I just
that's
don't
fair.
like hate him for his uselessness. So I still think most of, and actually it starts to get to some of the other stuff on the list.
Hmm.
Like I wrote on here, like if you're only doing your job, even though that's important, but you rarely impact the plot by doing your job, like,
Hmm.
and I think that kind of really ladders up to your definition. That's a way to be useless. You never save the day. Like you just, it's just never like your day to save the day. So you're just kind
Okay.
of around.
Okay.
Um, your job isn't important at all.
Oof.
Maybe this is
That's a
alluding.
oof.
That's the one that made me like have Neelix in mind, to be honest with you, because I'm
Yeah.
like, every ship doesn't have an ambassador, every ship doesn't have a morale officer, every ship doesn't have just some dude who knows the sector or is supposed to. So I'm like, at some point, you could put Neelix on the shuttlecraft and send him on his way, right? And he'd just be down on shuttlecraft, like
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And the fifth one, I don't think actually happens. This is just a theoretical one. I almost kind of thought about it for Barclay, but I don't think of Barclay as a useless character. But you always screw up would be a useless character, but I can't think of someone
Yes.
who's like a constant screw up.
But this goes back to some of the things that we talked about offline. Um, like I feel like the writers when they structure a show, they try to have that character for the newbies, the people who don't
Mm-hmm.
know Star Trek,
Oh yeah,
like the
the point of view
Trekkies.
character.
Exactly, the point of view character, the character that doesn't know anything, that character that's just like asking the questions that the audience would ask. Run across some Cleons, and they're just like Cleons? Question mark? It's
Who are they?
like the normal Trekkies know who Cleons are, but like what if this is a person that's like this is their first Star Trek series, that don't know
Yeah,
who Cleons are? They needed
which they
to.
did with Enterprise
They
in like
did.
their pilot.
They did. In which they had to create a character that was like that would be able to ask those questions, because it's like it wouldn't make sense for Captain Janeway to say Cleons. Like that's stupid. Like
That would be amazing. I'd be like, did she hit her head? Wow,
how
she really needs coffee.
how are you captain and you don't know who the Cleons are? Like so. And I'm generalizing, chat. I'm generalizing. I'm using the Cleons as like more of a general comment. Like yeah, this is a character race that like everybody should know if you're a Star Trek character. But if you're not a Trekkie, you probably saw a picture of them. You probably know what they look like, or you've seen them, or somebody said something about them, but you don't know them fully. So that's
Or
what.
even
Uh huh.
or even just to like ask the question of like, why do we do things this way? How does
Yes.
the replicator work? Like,
Yes.
just someone to get like those dumb questions out
Yes.
that like you as an audience appreciates, but everyone else in the world should be like, oh, okay, I can't believe I have to explain this, but all right.
And I kind of noticed when I was putting together my list, I don't know if this will be the same for your list, is that a lot of the characters that we probably will point out kind of fit into that trope of what the writers were using as
Mm,
a point of view character. And it's just like, how the hell do you not know this? But like, also at the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time, like, okay, yeah, if we're thinking about this critically, like the character would not know this.
Right, right. And that adds a different, because I have writers done you dirty to be useless. So I think they're covered to be useless, but it also
Hmm.
is like one of the more empathetic, useless situations. So like with Neelix, like I'm more empathetic, but I still think he's kind of useless on Voyager. I still feel like all of his episodes were either about something happened to him, and that's why he was the main character in the episode, or he was just like annoying Tuvok or something like that. Like I don't know if he passes your test of if you pulled him out of Voyager, is Voyager like
Um,
appreciably different outside of the Tuvix episode, which was a good ethical one, but that could have been anybody.
but like, and also at the same time, but that's an episode that's part of that. But there are other episodes besides the Tuvix episode that are Neelix centric that I feel like okay, we both agree that one of the main issues that Star Trek Voyager had was the lack of character development. Some of the characters either were not fully developed or they were exactly the same from season 1 to season 7,
Yeah,
or
just
there were
natural conflicts all over the place that were
exactly.
never developed or explored.
And there's some aspects of that character is just like, why wasn't this explored? That doesn't make sense. Like they shouldn't have been that
Kim and
agreeable in this.
Janeway should have been in a fist fight.
Oh man, Kim and Janeway by season 5, Kim should have been like, "Hey, why am I not promoted?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry if I got like very passionate on that one. That is something that like really, uh, for lack of a better term,
Oh, it hits me in my
pisses me
soul too.
off with furniture. Especially when you look at all the characters that got promoted. I believe we talked about this in a previous episode, so I will
Mm-hmm. We
digress.
did. Yeah.
But with Neelix, I feel like a lot of the episodes that he was in, he did bring some of the heart to the episode. Like there was one episode that I could think of vividly, and forgive me, Chad, I don't know the title of it, but Star Trek Voyager, where um, Naomi Wildman's mother, along with Tuvok and Paris, and I believe 7 to 9. I can't remember fully. They were stuck in a. They were on the Delta Explorer, and they got stuck in like this crater on a planet. And
I remember that episode. Yeah.
it looked like essentially they were going to die, for lack of a
Eh,
better term.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or should I say, be unalived? I forgot about the whole
Uh,
YouTube thing with that word.
we'll bleep that out.
We'll bleep that out. But for the most part, it looked like that they were not going to survive. So within that episode was mainly situated around Neelix and pointing out how difficult it is to deal with the passing of someone, and
Mm-hmm.
or the eventuality of possibly somebody passing, and being able to not only cope with that yourself, but also explain that to someone that's younger that doesn't fully understand that whole situation. So I would feel that that's one episode that would be lacking without him. And that was one of my favorite Neelix episodes, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I will admit I like that episode too, and his role in the episode. There's not a ton of Voyager episodes that I like, and this one's kind of on the border. But
I can
I liked
understand
his
that.
role in that episode. Yeah, I will say I still think he meets your broader definition because someone else could have done it. Like that's like the closest he's come to like having a true like I saved the day episode.
And
Is
okay,
protecting Naomi Wildman's kind of like innocence in this situation where her mom's life is in danger and like distracting her and trying to like guide her through it. I'm like that is very important. I'm like glad he was there to do, but at the same time like it's not like he like kept the warp core for breaching one episode or you know what I mean or
but
saved Janeway in an episode like the typical kind of heroics that we're used to.
but he still drove the central thesis of that episode. which is the main thing that I'm trying to get at. And if you would have replaced him with somebody else, like my argument there would be, who would have been the next logical person to replace them with that was that close to Naomi Wildman and would be considered uh, in that godfather, godmother type role in that
Well,
particular situation.
that's why I kind of like the episode because I'm like, this is a very uniquely Voyager episode in that sense.
Mm.
Like, this is something
Mm-hmm.
that could have like only happened here because, okay, if it was on TNG, then maybe Troy. But to your point, they wouldn't have had that closeness because it's not everybody, on the
But
same
you're
ship. So like,
but you're right. They probably
so
would have used like a counselor in that particular situation because
yeah,
they did that in TNG.
yeah. So like to make it kind of work on Voyager, you'd have to have the Doctor like upload a Troy subroutine to try to do it. But even then, like the
That's
actual
good.
like
Okay, I would
yeah,
I would expect you to go there around. That was good. That was good.
yeah, yeah. Well, but even to your point, like the Godfather, like being like kind of like a surrogate, dad in that situation, or uncle or something like that, still wouldn't have been the exact same. So that's like one of the reasons why I like kind of like that episode. Where it's like, oh, this is where they're really using the premise to strengthen the show. Like this is really the only show this could happen on.
Yeah,
So I like it.
and this was Borges' way of also showing you how strong of a role model, I should say, for Naomi that Neelix was. Because they showed it before in previous episodes where he was doing his godfatherly duties of like uh, tucking her in bed, being that person
Hmm.
when her mother was like doing something or off Voyager. He was there to like be there for Naomi in the meantime. So, but this was a another episode to show that more in full force, and then to touch on that particular topic, which is a really strong topic, in my opinion, and that's probably one of the main reasons why I love this episode so much. And I felt like it would have been missed if I would probably say the next character that was the closest to Naomi possibly around this time would have been Seven of Nine, and I would have to go back and like double check like when their
Yeah, which
relationship
season?
got
Yeah.
stronger. Um,
Because they started playing board games together and
exactly.
then became like besties.
Yeah, there was one particular episode where Seven of Nine was dealing with the her past, where she like I want to say accidentally, but she actually did it purposely. She linked three other Borg drones together to because she was scared because their unit was separated from the Borg collective, and they were trying to like they were becoming individuals, and she got scared because she was assimilated at a younger age when they were not. So she
Hmm.
kind of like linked them together to like bring back this whole Borg uh, centric thing to where they got until they got like reassimilated back with the Borg or whatnot. But that episode was the episode where her and Naomi, because they pretty much essentially established like Naomi was like, "I see you as family." Uh,
Yeah.
so that's when they got closer. So that's the only person that I could like really see that would have been as close to her as Neelix. But I don't feel it would have hit the same way because of how Seven of Nine's emotional structure was at that time.
Yeah. And I think this is where the useless definition starts to struggle because it's like made for and maybe you have to re-say your definition just so that I can make sure I've grasped it. Because making for a good episode, which this was, and I remember it being a good episode, Neelix still didn't act like save Naomi's mom and Tuvok
No,
and all of them. That was like
you're right.
other people who did that. So
You're
it's
right.
like was he useless to what needed to happen that day? A little bit. Was he very useful to Naomi and us enjoying a good episode
That's a good point.
with a good theme? Like
That's a good point.
very
I
yeah.
I guess I should add in like the tone of the episode, if it would if it would change or would not hit as hard to the other characters if this particular character was omitted.
Which is a good point because I'm sure if you're Janeway and it's like I got to put all my intention in on saving these folks, and I got this little girl here who I also have a relationship with, and I don't want her to like
Mm-hmm.
be messed up by this experience. You're going to be very thankful that you have Neelix there, right?
Yes.
So to that extent, you're useful to the captain. And I guess I will grant. Actually, I will concede that is like a good episode of him being useful to the captain. I still don't know if that crosses over into like being generally useful to Starfleet,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
given that they save the day, any other people save the day. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the paradox around Neelix. So I don't think you're the only person that like likes the character and doesn't view him as useless because that's what he does. And actually, when we talk about it in the business world, sometimes those people who like continually bring the heart, can be emotional glue and things like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Mm-hmm.
do get written off as being like fairly useless because it's like, well, it didn't lead to revenue that day, you
Yeah.
know. That's the cold-hearted capitalist coming out. You guys get my socialist side quite a bit, but that's the cold-hearted capitalist coming out of me a little bit. You know, those people do get devalued and labeled useless because of what I'm about to say. Because it's like, okay, well, but for like the next 10 episodes, you ain't gonna be doing
See,
that.
but that's the thing. Like when I thought of this particular topic, I knew that there would be parallels. There would be parallels with who we think was like, oh, this person was totally useless, or I didn't like this character at all, and I just feel like they're useless. I
Yeah,
I
yeah,
knew that there would be parallels, and even like when I throw out my list, I feel like you're going to probably have pushback for me as well. Uh,
yeah,
so
probably, but
so I understand, especially like what season 1 and 2 of Voyager, and by the extension, probably season 3 as well. Uh, Neelix was kind of insufferable, and there were certain episodes you just like, oh my god, oh, I
there
dislike
are
this guy.
episodes. Yeah, I can't think of a current example, but there are definitely ones where I was like, could someone airlock him? Can we do that in Starfleet? Or no, we don't airlock people in Starfleet. Got it.
Well,
Let's just
there's
say
one
I want him
episode.
airlocked.
There's one episode that I will point out, and once again, I don't know the exact episode title, but it was in season 1 where they were like studying some anomaly and everything, and then Neelix got upset because studying this anomaly made it to where all hands had to go to red alert and like go to their battle stations and whatnot. And Neelix was just like, I had enough. We keep stopping and like looking at all these anomalies and everything. It's
Yep.
just like, and it's like, Neelix, what the like, dude? How long
Dude,
you been on
it's
the ship?
Starfleet. Yeah.
And
In
then
episode 2, we became a Starfleet ship, and this
yeah,
will start. We go to Red Alert and we study weird stuff. Like
and
that's
then
what we do.
Janeway had to put him in his place. Like, I mean, we're not just gonna stop for every issue that you have. Like, you're either gonna be on the ship or you're not gonna be on the ship. This is what we do. Like, point blank. Like, you can either be here
Yeah.
or you. We can send you packing. It makes me no mind.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like, I get the dislike for the character. I truly do.
Well, it's also a bit of an argument for his uselessness, where Janeway's like, "Hey, you're kind of here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I can get this done without you, or you can fall in line, and I can keep thinking of ways to use you." Um,
Well, that was Janeway's way of like showing tough love. She she kind of figured, at least I would believe, she kind of figured that her saying this to him would make him just be like, "Oh, I'm going, I'm off the ship," because she did feel like he was useful because he knew a lot of the species and certain key planets that they should go to
At least when
within
the
the Delta
script let
Quadrant.
him do that.
Yeah, yeah, at least within the beginning. Uh, I believe it was like what the first 3 or 4 seasons where he had a lot of knowledge, and then like
It goes,
past the I
yeah,
think that little anomaly that they had, he didn't know anything.
yeah. He that's when he became like the morale officer and the
Hmm.
ambassador, and things like that. I don't want to denigrate the people that are like the heart of the team because I think that's important, despite the fact that I'm like a lawyer strategist person and like deal with all these like facts and argument and stuff. Um, Man, we could almost stay here all day on Neelix because
We could,
his journey between like uselessness, usefulness, like all that stuff is a wild one
we could,
on on Voyager.
and I would be remiss to say that this is a particular topic that uh, we could probably talk about this topic for a long time, probably 5 to 8 hours. Uh,
This could have been a court episode, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I don't know if it could have been because then we
It
would.
would have
But
been an extremely close call. Neither of us would have had particularly good arguments in that one.
I would
So.
agree. But we would have to focus specifically on one character. Like, is Neelix useless in Star Trek? Like, I
Oh
feel
no,
like,
that's what I was saying. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. It like particularly is Neelix useless is like the only court episode. Like this whole topic would have been just too unwieldy for a court episode.
that's true. That's true. That's true. And I feel like this is one of those topics that we're not gonna be able to discover everything within one episode. This is probably one of those topics that we're gonna have a part two at some point in the future.
Yeah,
So,
because definitely,
mhm.
because definitely Naomi Wildman is on my list. So that makes like the whole useless argument a little like his best episode is also like protecting someone who I think is also useless.
That hurts. Oh, that hurts. Uh, okay. Before we go there, I have to point out my first useless character, and it tracks with what we've been talking about so far. Kess. Kess is one of my useless
Kess is
characters.
on my list. Kess is on my list.
I kind of figured. I figured that she probably would be. Um,
Yeah,
because by and my argument for this one is by season end of season 2 and even going into 3, they were like, we have zero clue what to do with this character. We have no idea how to develop this character to make this character seem way more interesting than what she really was. I felt like the writers in the beginning wrote themselves into a bit of a circle or a wall when
right into
they
a corner.
it,
Hard agree.
like there were certain aspects about this character that's just like, okay, this is interesting. The Okampa, they only lived 10 years. Right there, I mean, obvious red flag right there with that
Yeah.
part.
I mean, him dating Kess makes his later relationship with Naomi Wildman a
Oh,
little bit problematic,
a
but
little problematic there.
I'd
It's
like
like,
to know what Kendrick Lamar would think on the topic. Hey,
and it,
Neelix, I hear you like him young.
hey, Nilix, I hear you like him young.
Right?
That's true.
Hey,
That's
gets, do we have to bleep that last part?
no, not at all. I'm keeping that in. That is completely and totally staying in 100%. Um, but like Kess, I truly feel like there were a number of episodes, except for one that's coming to mind, that it's just like if you took her out of it, this episode would be fine. It's hard for me to think of any other episodes besides the episode where they where it showed her aging backwards. Um, I don't know if you remember
Oh
that.
yeah,
Do you remember?
I kind of remember. I don't remember what was going on that made her central to that episode.
she had been hit with some type of uh, chronotons from the Krenim when they eventually
Oh,
uh, uh, come in contact with the Krenim. Apparently, the whole crew was affected by these chronotons from a missile that hit their ship that didn't explode or whatnot. And then when Cass got to a point where she was so old, uh, they were trying to
when she
prolong
was 8.
her. Yeah, basically, they were trying to prolong her from passing away, and the doctor created some chamber to like kind of like hold her in place a bit. Uh,
Okay.
but it activated those chronotons, which had the opposite effect and like had her reverse um, kind of a Benjamin Buttons type deal. except she,
Okay.
except she was like bouncing like in between like certain periods of time. Which that episode I could have probably did without. Granted, like it was her centric episode, but I still could have did without that because of one reason and one reason alone. Do you know what this
Okay.
reason is?
No, what is it?
The fact that in that particular timeline, Paris and Kess ended up getting married and having a child, and that child grew up, and Harry Kim was the one that got married to her and had a child by her.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What were they doing on this show?
It was
What were they doing?
I
What were they doing?
I I'm
That is
trying to.
so gross.
It's
What?
extremely gross, and I'm trying to say that I kind of understand because it's like a different civilization,
No. No.
a different
No.
culture, and they only live
No.
10 years, and
No.
so by that,
No.
it, I'm
No.
I've
I,
tried
I
what I'm trying to
I'm
say is
putting my foot down. No.
what I'm trying to say is from a Star Trek point of view, I've tried to rationalize it. When I was younger, it was probably easier for me to rationalize this. In my older age, I'm like, this
Mm-mm.
is weird.
Mm-mm.
There's no
Mm-mm.
way I can rationalize this. It. I feel like the writer should not have done this. Like
Man, you
point
about to make
blank,
me
full
get up.
stop.
You're about to make me get up and start reading from the Bible, man. Like I can't. I can't. I can't with this. No. No. These dudes that wrote this scenario need to be in the next
Yes.
trial right after Diddy.
Yes. Yes.
Once he's guilty, then we moving on to these dudes who came up with this.
And that's
Just
if they
joking. The
were
First Amendment's real, but yeah,
allegedly. And that's
allegedly real. Love it.
it's such a weird dynamic, and it's just like as a kid watching that, it didn't fully click to me. Like in my teenage years, I believe I was probably like what 12,
Yeah.
13
When
when
did
that
this?
episode came
Yeah.
out. Uh, in that age, I was just like, "Oh, this is interesting. This is a version of the future that probably won't exist or whatnot." But then, like looking at it as a grown person and like in my grown age, I probably rewatched Voyager a total of 4 or 5 times. Yeah, probably 4 or 5 times since my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And each time, I remember vividly watching this when I was back in college, finishing my undergraduate degree, and rewatching the episode. And I was just like, this is
Yeah.
not
It's
a good point of view to put Harry Kim into.
at that point I would not promote him either, but
By that
that
part
did.
alone.
Yeah, but that wasn't the real timeline, so Janeway's not off the hook in our book.
No, she's not. So
Yeah, this is why Kess ended up on my list as well. Not this specific reason, but like
mhm.
every Kess-centric episode or everything she did was basically like something happening to her, very passive protagonist. She
Yes.
never moved the
Yes.
action. She never did anything.
Yes.
Like there would be like one encouraging talk every once in a while to someone else who was going to do something, but I'm
Uh-huh.
like, Chakotay could have done that. Like whatever. Like we don't need you here for that. So like, and then you're right. The writers wrote a species in the Akampa that you really should have met on a planet in one episode where something weird happened and moved on from
Yeah,
because they're just so strange.
it'd be like, oh, that's interesting, and then next episode, move on. Don't even think about
Yeah,
it fully.
trying to continue on someone who's 2 years old but an adult, doesn't know the world, but is wise beyond her years somehow. Like they took on a challenge that they just shouldn't have taken on, and it
Yeah,
ended up creating a character that really only things could happen to.
yeah.
And it's just like, okay, well, every time there's a Kess episode, I'm like, we're just saving her because she's here. If we had just left her on her planet, she would have been fine. Like, so yeah,
And then from the beginning, she when she boarded Voyager, she at first became the local botanist to
right,
create the plants and stuff in the cargo bay and have another supply of food that they could
right,
have. But also it was just like, okay, with her being in this position, she's not necessarily centric to a lot of situations that would occur with the ship. So we need to add something else in there to make her more of a centralized character of the crew. So then they added the fact that, oh, she became the nurse for the doctor on Voyager, which
yeah.
in my opinion, I thought was a better use of her character. I would agree with that, but it's still looking back on it now and really like thinking about it. It's just like this was considered an afterthought and a way to pivot her character to make her more interesting.
Yeah, and even then, it's even kind of like because I work in the healthcare field, it's even still like a simplified version of a nurse where it's
Mm-hmm.
just like
Mm-hmm.
you just do what the doctor like real life nurses like cure
Do
people. Like
everything. Yeah,
yeah,
practically.
they they cover a lot of ground that they don't give to Kess being the doctor's air quote nurse. Um so even then she doesn't get to be as fully useful because she's like look at Nurse Chapel in Strange New Worlds. Like
Yes,
and
yes.
all the stuff she does.
That is probably the best use of how a nurse really looks like because Dr. Mbanga actually like relies on Nurse Chapel for her knowledge and expertise, not just as a person that's there to like, oh yeah, give him this, give him that.
Yeah. Like she was a nurse in the way that I could be a nurse, right?
Yeah,
like, like
yeah.
not understanding anything and just being like, oh, he wants the like in the way that like I was an auto mechanic with like my dad fixing cars. Yeah, let me
Mm-hmm.
hold the light and
Yes.
and you the tool you're looking for, right? So yeah, Kess, it is one of those situations where her character was probably done dirty by the writers more than anything else, but it made for some like very, I mean, I can't remember anything important she did on the show.
it's it's but okay, granted, there was a lot of politics with why she was essentially let go from the show. Around that time, from what I understand, ratings were not great for Voyager. So they were
Yeah.
trying to find a way of like shaking up the cast to make it uh, quote unquote more interesting for
Yeah,
you
it got
know,
more interesting.
yeah, you know what I'm pointing at, Patrick.
As a heterosexual male with
Uh-huh.
a healthy
Libido.
outlook on life,
Uh-huh.
I call it outlook on life.
Outlook of life. I say libido.
With a healthy out. It did get more interesting. No, I will say that.
But like you also saw that within season 3 of like how they changed the look of her character from having short hair to having longer hair, from having a more modest uniform to a more tight fitted uniform. So you started to see what they were trying to do. This was
Yeah,
and it's crazy because you had Deep Space Nine between TNG and Voyager, but still you had the same issue that happened in TNG with Deanna Troy happen in Voyager, and it's just
that's true.
like, what? Did y'all not learn y'all lessons from TNG? Like,
Nope. If they had written her as more interesting, I don't think there would have been an issue. Even back in that day, I think especially in this day there wouldn't have been an issue. But like in that
mm-hmm.
way, but like back then, there was definitely like, well, if you're not going to do anything important, then you might as well support my outlook, a healthy outlook on life, which is a terrible thing to do to women
Yeah,
and
really
women actors.
terrible way of doing the
Yeah,
women,
actors.
especially like trying to create a strong, which is crazy because Voyager was supposed to be, not supposed to be, is the first Star Trek series that's led by a female character as the
Yeah,
captain. So it's like you have this strong female character within the captain, but don't know how to fully utilize one of the
any of the other
softer
women except for
female,
Balana.
except for Balana, and arguably, I feel like Balana is one of my probably one of my top favorite characters in Star Trek. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
we can probably like have an episode on that, or like who are our top favorite characters in Star Trek. That's actually a good idea.
Ooh,
Now that I'm
that
thinking
is a
about
great
it.
idea. I'm gonna
Um,
add it to the list while you're
please,
talking.
please do. So like you had Catherine Janeway, you had Bailana, and then you had Kess, and it was just like womp womp with Kess.
Mm-hmm.
But granted, like in all fairness, though, to Kess's character, they didn't know what to do with some of the male characters as well. So,
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. Voyager's writing issues are
mm-hmm,
everywhere, and it held
mm-hmm,
back that series in a number of different ways. Um, but it definitely hit the character of Kess a lot. I do want to make a quick note that just because this is on the internet and people don't know what to do with themselves sometimes on the internet. This is not a statement on the actress's portrayal. I think
oh,
her name's Jennifer
100%,
Lean.
100%.
I think she did a great job, and she's had like a
Mm-hmm,
rough go of it since leaving
mm-hmm.
Voyager. I don't know all the
Yes,
details, but like there's been like substance abuse and arrest and
yeah,
things like that with her. So like, I don't want our conversation about Kess to end up with anyone being like, well, let me go give the actress even more difficulty than what she's having in life
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
Or yeah, actually, I thought the last I heard she started to like come out of some of that stuff. But either way, not about her. All about Kess, and y'all leave her alone. Let her recover and be on her path.
And I want to point that out strongly because I feel like very strong fan bases for certain series and worlds, they get to the point of like looking at the character, the actor, I should say, the actor or actress as the the character, and not really separating the two, because like the actor or actress has a lot of times um, they don't have a lot of um, say so in how the character is developed. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's per, purely on the showrunner, director, writers of the series. So you probably have some actors or actresses that's like they either been with the show and been become very prominent where they can like have certain things that they could say like, oh, I think the character should be done this way, or da, 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 or for this particular episode in this particular situation, I don't think the character will react this particular way, I think they will act this particular way. And a lot of times they will take that and be like, oh yeah, okay, let's go that direction. But for the most part, you will have some of those headstrong directors at writers that will just be like, no, do it how we wrote it. So,
Yeah, yeah. I, just to back you up on this point, like from different franchises, two different examples of that. Like Robert Downey Jr. probably
Mm-hmm.
hasn't said a line that was written for him
Mm-hmm.
in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
In the MCU when he was Iron Man and all that stuff. Like, unless it's like a situation that he agrees with to say it verbatim, like he doesn't really have to do anything. And so if you're not on like highest paid actor in Hollywood level, like it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
get away with that.
It,
Versus like a guy like Aaron Sorkin who wrote the West Wing and the Newsroom and a few other shows and movies. A lot of people don't like Aaron Sorkin, and I think I might be one of them, but I'll figure that out later. Um, he writes his shows where all you can do is say verbatim what's on the page, and it doesn't matter what you would think about what the character does or anything like that. So
mm-hmm.
like it's always a weird thing to me when people are like associating the actual actor or person with what they had to say and do on TV because it's like okay, if Robert Downey Jr. says something that's weird, he may have had a little bit more power to push back, but like most of these people who are just trying to cut a check and go home are just going to be like, "Oh, I can't fight against the director, and this is what the script says. I'm going to go on."
Well,
So if my character ends up sucking, they end up sucking. Like,
it's kind of like a lot of Star Trek characters in the first season of them being on the show. They didn't have a lot of agency. They were less
mm-hmm.
known actors or actresses, so they really didn't have a lot of say so. But by like second, third, fourth, even fifth season of the show, they have established themselves as a pretty strong actor or actress, and not only within that show but also outside of the show as well. So they had more say so. Um, uh, Kess, and by the extension, her the actress that played her, I don't believe never got to that point of being able to say like I don't believe
Yeah.
Kess would react like this in this particular situation. And that's going back to Marina Sirtis and TNG. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have the agency in season one, two, even three, but like by season four, five, six, five and six is when her character really like had a good change to show like how smart, I should say, she is, and how ambitious she can be.
Oh, and it happened to Worf too, Michael Dorn.
Oh yeah, Worf as well. That's a good point as well. So, but for Marina Sirtis though, like she even talks about how she wasn't able to say certain things about her character that would have been rewritten until like season almost six and seven, where they were actually like really listen to her and like because she had everybody knows who's a Trekkie like knows that she had a lot of brain dead lines. It's just like oh
Mm-hmm.
anybody could have said that and it
Which is why she almost made the useless character list.
she almost did but like I can't do Deanna Troy that way.
Well, it's because the writers did it that way, and it's hard to when the right like same thing with Kess. Even though we just talked about it, like
Mm-hmm.
when the writers do you dirty like that, and you're just like, well, that makes you useless. It's like, hey, it doesn't feel good when you're useless because the writers just wrote you useless, even though they thought they were trying to be smart and brilliant, right?
I agree. I agree. But we will digress on Cass. I feel like we've hammered this point across. Um,
Yeah, I just looked up. I was trying to see if
mhm.
Jennifer Lane was still working as an actress. I don't think she
I don't think
is,
she is.
but I think she's. I haven't seen anything to say she's doing better. And one thing scared the daylights out of me because there was a Jennifer Lane obituary, and I was like, "Whoa, wait, no,
Whoa.
she's still alive." So
Okay. Wow.
so we're still there, but she definitely has like dropped off the grid. Like there's no recent update. But the last thing I heard from somewhere is that she's doing a lot better, and I'm like, that's good. So
That's good. That's really really good. Okay. Well, let's move on
yeah.
for Cass and let's go to your next person that you.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to do the
Yes. Yes.
next person on the list or the next like most interesting person on the list?
The person that you pointed out before we jumped over to Cass.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna roll Naomi Alden because I noticed I'm giving like most of the children a bad rap. Um,
Really?
because right before that is, or right below that one is the Borg children that got saved from the collective. Like Icheb was one of them.
Oh,
That was his
we're
name.
gonna have to. Okay, we're gonna have to unpack that one. I have some
Yeah,
strong things to talk about on that one. Okay, keep going.
and I didn't hit all the children. Like I left off Jake, even though Jake was pretty useless for a while. I left off Wesley, even though Wesley. Well, I think we're gonna get to Wesley because you have him somewhere. Um, so I didn't
Maybe.
hit like every kid in Star Trek, but
Hmm.
like the children, the Borg children, and Naomi Wildman on Voyager are just like. Oh, and I guess we shouldn't leave out Alexander, um,
Oh,
the
that's a.
Alexander
Oh, I
Voroshenko.
did not even think of Alexander.
Yeah, it's almost
Ah.
like are all the children when they're at least when the children are being children because I
Okay.
think Jake became like a grown man before I was like, oh, he's actually useful. But
Well,
Rom and Jake and Alexander, the Borg
Jake
children,
and
they
Rom, I would disagree with, but a lot of the other children characters, I would agree with. Well, except for even, but also about us, we'll get there. So, do you want to say Naomi Wildman for this one, or do you want to say the children in Star Trek?
I feel like I gotta say the children because singling out Naomi is kind of kind of like what do you expect children to do, right?
Yes, yes,
Like that's where I
yes.
come back to it, where it's like, okay, having a child on board raises the stakes, kind of like having children on the Enterprise raises
Mm-hmm.
the stakes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we all like as a society, we like want to protect the children. They're the future. We give them a lot of leeway and expect their parents to discipline them. But even,
Mm-hmm.
I think they've done like even like experiments where like even if a child is being like kind of ignored by their parents and they start to get in danger, like other adults will react. So we all have like this like built-in reaction to like protect the children,
Yeah.
right,
I
left,
believe the children
black,
are our
white.
future.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of them have made for some useless Star Trek characters, even though they invoke that kind of reaction where it's like it's the only reason why I love that Neelix episode because it's like he's protecting a child, and we would all protect a child, even single people and all that stuff. So like, I think I have to roll all the children into one just to be fair to Naomi, but Naomi Waldman is who kicked off that line of thought because I'm like, if she's not in that show, like nothing is different.
But that particular Neelix episode, the reason why I love it so much is because it shows like not only of how like people in real life would try to protect a child in that particular sense, and they would feel like that they can't, that child cannot handle it, and that's true that in some cases some children won't be able to handle that particular piece of information, but there are also some children that are like even though they are children they've been raised up as such. They hadn't had to grow up too early.
Mm-hmm.
They are still emotionally grounded enough to understand that situation. And like, yeah, of course it's going to affect them. Any person's parents that was significant in their
Mm-hmm.
lives that ended up passing away is going to hurt them. But the way that they depicted it showed that oh, Neelix is trying to protect Naomi, but Naomi's dude, I'm not like this little girl that you need to like coddle in this particular
Mm.
situation. Tell me the truth. I can take it. It's going to hurt, but that doesn't mean that I can't take it. And in that particular sense, Neelix was the one being the child, which was
Yeah, it's a good reversal.
it was. It was, and that's one of the
Because
main reasons why I love that episode.
what was her? I think her mom's name is Samantha, but she's like a lieutenant
Yeah, I think
or
Samantha
whatever.
Wildman. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think her rank is like I think her rank is lieutenant maybe, but I might be wrong about
I
that.
think it is
But
Lieutenant
if you
Junior grade.
okay, because if you're a parent in Starfleet, I think at some point when your children and I haven't raised any kids, so I don't know, but I feel
Hmm.
like at some point between the ages of 8 and 10, your kids start to like pick up on more than you expect. And I think at some point you have to sit down and be like, I have a bit of a dangerous job, and we do everything
Mm-hmm.
as safely as we can. But you should just know that this is where we are in the galaxy. This is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
This is, what I'm going to be facing, and it's not something to be afraid of every day. But hey, you might have to make your own way one day. Like I don't know how that conversation works down. I don't like. I think about like firefighters and cops and people who are in the military and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like how they explain it to their kids. They probably have a much better way of explaining it. And I'm like, surely Lieutenant Wildman. I almost said Ensign Wildman, so I wonder if she's an ensign. But
So,
surely,
so I did look it up while you were talking. It is
okay,
Ensign. It's Ensign Wildman, not
okay.
Lieutenant.
So surely Ensign Wildman, given how old that girl is at some point, was like, mommy's got a bit of a dangerous job. I don't always do the most dangerous things, but I do have to go do these things I hear sometimes and ask these questions. If you don't see me around or if
Mm-hmm.
I'm gone longer than I should be, look out
Mm-hmm.
for these people and things like that's just preparing your child for the world. And it's almost like in that episode, you're right. Naomi had gotten that talk, but Neelix hadn't gotten that talk. Almost pointing to the point where like he wasn't like as enmeshed in Starfleet yet as
Yeah.
even the children are at that point.
Well, but also at the same time, like, okay, like, yeah, you don't have children, and I'll point this out. Like, yes, I don't have children either. However, I am a godfather to a number of my friends' children, and I've had to help raise in certain aspects these children. Not fully raise them like a mother and father would, but like I have been in consistent contact with a lot of my godsons and daughters, uh, and I've noticed like even with the difference between them, like there are some that like my oldest goddaughter, even at a very young age, when she was just in her early teens, she was smarter and more emotionally intelligent than most adults that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I could be more candid with her and more forthcoming with certain pieces of information because I knew she could handle it. But there's one of my godchildren, one of my godsons that isn't as emotionally mature. So I know I can't be as candid with him as I would have been with her. So it's just really just understanding the child and where they're at, and and being able to tell how emotionally intelligent they are. But that particular episode stemmed from Neelix and his childhood and how everything that happened with his planet, with the war and all that stuff, and him not necessarily having the ability to fully have been a child himself and having to
Right.
have grown up as quickly as he did. So a lot of his angst with telling her that was, I know how I felt when I heard that my parents were killed in this vicious assault.
Right.
I don't want to inflict that onto her.
Which is a very grown up thing to do in that a lot of us grown ups carry trauma,
Yeah.
anxiety, and things like that that we don't want to impart on others,
Mm-hmm.
but it like obscures our objectivity in terms of like how to communicate what needs to be communicated. So it was a real part of the episode, which is why I like
Exactly.
the episode.
And when she pointed it out to him, he was just like, "Oh," it was like an aha moment. Like, "Oh, I'm the one being the child here. I was trying to protect her when it was actually better for me to just be forthcoming with her on what was going on, and she
Yeah,
probably would have
but
respected me more."
does that make her useful?
Uh,
Is she not a useless character? And extending that to a bunch of the children across the Star Trek
I
verse.
understand what you are saying, but the biggest thing that I had what made me love in not instant what made me love Wildman's character was that she brought a lot of innocence and heart to the series that I feel like it needed. Because it around this time when they like kind of changed everything to be uh, more viewable for audiences at that time, they uh, made it more serious as well. They started putting them into even more conflicts and less of the particular Star Trek type themed episodes. So I felt like she brought a lot of grounding, heart, innocence to the episodes when she was there. So, in my opinion, she wasn't useless. You may feel
So,
differently.
and I think this is like pinging the corners of like what happens when you start labeling useless and useful.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the characters I don't like Neelix,
Mm-hmm.
got labeled useless. But now we got characters who we love, like the children. Like I don't hate these kids, right? Like the Borg children, like I thought they were cute at times and things like
Immediately when you
that.
said
Like
that, I was thinking, F them kids.
I know, right? unless you're Jordan, unless you're the goat. But do we start like putting that halo effect around characters that we like and calling them useful just because we like them?
I mean,
And
but
it's like,
well, okay, let's explore this more because by that extension, you had Alexander,
yeah,
which a lot of people would probably lean more towards on the side of he was useless. Even I, thinking about it right now, would probably think that his character was more useless than anything. It literally got to the point where, in my
even
opinion,
in
that
DS9,
even in
you didn't have.
DS9, the the writers just like completely forgot that he even existed.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh, that's right. We're having an episode where kids are involved. You know what? Alexander is aboard the Enterprise at this time. It's like, how do you, how do you not
it's
remember
like I almost
this?
forgot he's been there for like a year and a half. Like,
Like the episode where Picard, Guinan, Ensign
and
Ro,
Roe,
and
yeah,
Keiko became children. And then it was like, okay, this is a children centric episode. So we got to put like the children of the Enterprise. Oh, yeah, Alexander is aboard the Enterprise for time. So we got to put him in this episode. Uh,
otherwise it'd be like, well, where is he? Like
yeah,
you forced
exactly.
him on us. Like he was on Earth and you brought him back for a purpose. So like, what's he gonna do now? Oh, he's gonna.
And that was my main thing with Alexander is that they kept either having him there or not having him there. It was like Worf either wanted him on board the Enterprise at the very beginning, and then he was just like, "This is too hard to even be a father." Be a freaking father, Worf. We'll talk about that more during the Father's Day episode.
Mm-hmm.
And actually be there for Alexander. Just be like, this is too tough. I'm just gonna send him to Earth with our parents. Have Cleon child. We're going to send him to Earth with your human parents. Like Worf.
Who by who by
Seriously?
Federation who by Federation standards, who knows what old is at that point? Like, are they even like 60, or are they just like very healthy octogenarians like that you're sending this child to be raised with? Like what are we doing?
Well, my thing is like, okay, I understand this is more of an enlightened like future of humanity and everything, but the CPS still not exist? Like, do they not have like a parental unit that like looks into like children that's not being done the best way and like have a conversation with them? Because it,
Starfleet CPS.
well, from what I have been told, growing up, my father was in the military. My mother taught me a lot about how the U.S. military. He was in the army, enlisted. But she told me how the army is real big when it comes to family. If you do, if the soldier shows any sign of them not being a good father or, by that extension, a mother, because are females in the armed services. If they're not showing that they are good parents to their children, that is a big deal, and it's brought up to their commanding officer. By that
Right.
extension, also, if they're shown as not being good spouses as well, that is a big deal within the armed forces as well, and it could be grounds for you being ousted from the armed forces as well. So,
Hmm.
I mean, since we talked about in the last episode about Starfleet being a military,
It's just a hard argument the other way. That's all it is.
look, 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 look. Kumla rendered his verdict. All right, he rendered his verdict. Starfleet is a military organization. Okay, so
As
we're
far as this podcast goes, yep.
as far as this podcast goes, that is the case. So I would I don't understand like why Counselor Troy hadn't like put that in a notice to Starfleet like Worf is being a terrible father and not really being for his child. And then like all of a sudden one episode, the CPS comes aboard the Enterprise to talk to Worf. And actually,
Especially when they investigate things like time.
oh, Patrick, you still there? Patrick, you still there?
I might be having audio issues. Hang on a second.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you now. We're just we're
So,
just gonna take a minute.
sorry, I got up and like walked to a different part of my apartment. Um,
Got you.
so I think that like caused a bit of the issue.
So you,
But am I good now?
yeah, you're good now. You were saying like, especially when they investigated things dealing with time.
Yeah, they have like a time. They have Section 31. They clearly have
Mm-hmm.
uh, like internal affairs, and they have a JAG Corps. So like, yeah, why don't they have CPS? Why was Worf allowed to get away with with that?
And this is one of those things that Star Trek fans actually bring up a lot is that Worf was not a great father. But we can really dissect this to being like the writers just did not know fully what to do with Alexander, and almost kept forgetting that he was even a character in the Star Trek universe.
So that points out like a bigger question, which is why do they have children on the show? And I think that's where I get back to my because a lot of them don't become interesting until they're adults, which is how really terrible people talk about kids
Yeah,
when you think about it in real life.
yeah.
Um, but like Jake and Rom, to me, didn't become really interesting until they were nearing adulthood or were adults. The one interesting episode with Alexander, he's a full blown adult who's like traveled through time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's
Like
a
so,
really good episode. I agree with you.
yeah. Um, and then I think the most interesting thing that happened to Naomi Wildman, she was an adult in an episode with Icheb when they were traveling through time, and they didn't spend but like 2 minutes with her. I'm like, well, that's the most interesting thing she's done
Yeah.
on this show. So I'm like, if all the children just become interesting when they're adults, then they're all useless,
it
right? Like
that
when they're
that goes
kids, at least.
that goes back to adults trying to write for a child and how a child would react in this. Some adults will probably can tap into that, but a number of adults cannot. It's one of those things like it's weird that in the writers' room somebody didn't point out, well, would Alexander react like this? Or would any of these child characters react like this in this particular instance? Like, would that really be how they would be? Um, and granted, like, due to certain things, like, in America, children can't work beyond a certain point. Like they have like strict guidelines on how hard children should be working, even children actors. And by the extension, I don't think there are any like
Right.
children writers like
Yeah.
that would be in these rooms to be like, no, he would react like this. That was a terrible. That was,
Yeah.
that was a terrible.
Pitch up. Yeah. Is that how all children sound to you?
Yes, yes, that's exactly how they sound.
It sounded a bit like Mickey Mouse.
That's different. No, Mickey Mouse. Oh boy. Oh, don't get me started on the Mickey Mouse voice. I can do that way too easily. By the way. Uh,
Yeah, so categorically, I end up just like dinging all the kids on Star Trek, and I guess because they're not really supposed to be, which they say in like the first episode of TNG, they're like, Picard's like, I don't know why they gave me a ship with kids. Like, I don't think they're supposed to be here anyways. So maybe they're just not supposed to be there, and it's just
I really
not
think
really
they
supposed to be working, or
going back to our last episode. I really think that they did that to show that the Federation isn't really truly as militaristic as they pointed out in the original
right,
series. Because we have a lot of instances in the original series where it shows like, and by the extension also the movies as well, to show like, oh, this really looks like a more militaristic type organization within the Federation. Uh, so I think they did that to show like, oh, this ship is a peace keeping vessel, not going out there to
yeah,
wage war or to attack. It's literally to learn about new lives and new civilizations to learn. And here's another way of showing that is that we have our kids on here as well. So yeah.
yeah. Well, and it puts Wesley Crusher, who I know you want to talk to at some point in this, on the ship as well, because he's still very thoroughly a child.
Hmm.
Maybe not very thoroughly, but he's
Well, at
at
the
best a young adult.
weaning
Yeah,
years of his childhood.
yeah, when he's on. But gosh, I can't think of an episode. Okay, I can think of an episode where the kids help save the day. Like they made
Yeah,
Rascals, the episode
yeah.
that you made earlier, and I think there was a Deep Space Nine episode were Jake and Rom as kids. And I might not be remembering that
Well, don't
correctly.
they had a few episodes where not I don't think they necessarily saved the day from what I can remember. Uh,
Okay.
but like they did have some centric episodes for Jake and Rom that were really good episodes in my opinion. So
Yeah, they end up being important, especially Jake ends up being very important because of how it rounds out Cisco. Because if
yes,
we only know Cisco as a
yes,
captain, I think he could come off as a bit. And look, we're black people talking about black men talking about this. I think he could come off as kind of like a force, which is what they say about us at work sometimes,
yeah,
even though we're not.
a
But
bit of a
like, you know
hard
what I'm saying? Like,
a bit of a hard ass, not
yeah,
really being
but
soft in certain situations and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, so I think it adds dimension to him, but I think he would have been that kind of captain anyways. I don't think he's like the touchy feely kind of captain anyways, but regardless of his race. Um, so it did add that
hmm
dimension to him, but that's all the kids are there for, which I guess is useful, but at the same time, I don't know. It's like
they,
it's also a show for adults, so like, well, if he's just a hard ass, then he's just a hard ass, right? Like, I don't know what to think about that.
the writers really only use the character the children characters to bring some type of hard or softness to the episode. Um, and there's probably only two, maybe three instances that we can think of where the children were used in a very smart way to drive the episode to bring it home and like have the characters learn lessons.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess is it fair or not to? That's what we're
I
struggling with to try to tie it off. Like
I think
with
it's
any,
fair. I think it's fair because going back to my definition from the beginning of the episode, if you take that character out and replace them with somebody else, could the episode still work? I believe it could.
okay,
A number of those episodes, I believe it could, except for those two or three that we can think of. that character
where
was
they honestly,
centric.
yeah, they honestly kind of went out of their way to make it an
Hmm.
episode where the kids save the day. Like Disaster is a an example of that, and Rascals, like really just TNG. I can't really
Hmm.
think of.
And
Otherwise, it's
Wesley, a lot of I would be remiss to say that a lot of fans did not like Wesley's character, and because they felt like he was a bit of a know-it-all, and I believe the writers did him a disservice when they wrote his character, when they didn't like point out that he is a prodigy and that his father was very intelligent, and also by extension his mother, who was a doctor, and ended up being one of the heads of Starfleet Medical, was very intelligent. So it's like you had those two influences along with that. Your surrogate father, Picard, is one of the greatest captains within the Federation, who also influenced him. That all that being fed into his genes, all these uh, uh, adults that were feeding into him, he ended up becoming this smart, strong character as well. But a lot of people didn't see it in that fact because the writers didn't really present him in that way.
yeah. If he's supposed to be precocious, infinitely curious, and has this kind of built-in base of knowledge, because ever since, because I think he's like supposed to be like 11 or 12 or whatever. So like from the ages of like 7 to 11, all he's been doing is Starfleet stuff, Starship this,
Hmm.
and things like that. Like lay the foundation for him to do that. Otherwise,
Yeah,
he just comes
yeah,
off as the annoying kid always asking why.
yeah.
Like if he already knows how the ship works because he's been you know eating, living, and breathing this.
Show that. Show that in the
Yeah,
previous episode, or even at the beginning of the episode when you're going to bring this up, probably later. Like that, I agree with you. And by because of that, I can understand why fans were irritated with his character.
yeah, yeah. Because he just comes off, and I said this offline, but like it comes off as like, oh, he's just a Mary Sue, and it just has worked out where he just has
Hmm.
saved the day
Hmm.
and has these skills that like no one can explain, but we all have to listen to now. And oddly enough, in the theme of like growing up, I think by the time he's a field promoted ensign, like I look at him very differently. Like he has like
True.
done stuff, been educated. He's like not at the academy yet, not because of just him being young, but like he didn't pass the test, and like, but we want to keep him more. Like it starts to fill
Yeah.
in, and it's like, okay, I get why he's starting to save the day now because he's like a dude, like, but they don't establish him as a dude earlier. It's just like, okay, this annoying kid has just come off as like smarter than all the
Yeah.
adults, and I can't explain why.
But I can
And
see
it
a
makes
lot of I can see a lot of people why they would be upset with even his field promotion to an acting instant as well. It's like, oh well, he didn't fully earn that. Like, um, granted, like there are episodes that show like how smart he was. I don't think they did it in a way to show like, oh no, he definitely deserves to be a part of this crew because he's done X, Y, and Z.
I have to remember why he didn't get in, because I felt like the episode where he gets his field promotion, and maybe I should have gone back and watched it for this conversation. It was very justified why he got a field promotion. Like something
Mm-hmm.
like I thought he was taking his academy entrance exam, and something happened, and he ends up saving the day. But like there was a guy that like beat him on an earlier test. Well, saving the day in a simulation. It wasn't like a real save the day, but like he figured everything else out. And Picard was basically like, okay, this dude like, oh, he helped the dude. That's what it was. He helped the dude that beat the test quicker than him, that let him go into the academy, but he got held out
Yeah,
because, and it was
but
just like, at some point it was like, oh, he's on that level, and we're just like going to keep it going for a year because he'll be in the academy next year. Like, it made more sense to me than that.
I
I don't,
truly have an issue with that episode, by the way, because I
oh,
don't
okay.
I don't think they fully explained how the person is selected to go into the academy. They really made it seem like in that particular episode that, well, I believe there was like 4 or 5 people that was trying to go into the academy that was taking that test, and it really only truly seemed like there was only one spot open for them to go into, which wouldn't make sense in my mind. Uh,
Yeah, when you start factoring in the post scarcity economics, which is an episode in our long term future, and
mm-hmm.
we have like a lot of time to research and figure that out, it doesn't make a ton of sense. Like they are manufacturing scarcity,
Yeah.
which makes sense if you want the best of the best at Starfleet. But at the same time, there has to be like a ton of Starfleet officers. So taking one more dude on doesn't seem
Well, I feel like the
it doesn't seem like it should be an issue, right?
I feel like the writers did that to add agency into the episode with him. Oh, he. It's not just a pass or fail type thing. It's a, oh no, you have to be the very best in order to get this spot. And like I said, it didn't make sense. It's one of my issues with that episode. Even though I kind of like that episode, it's still like going back and like during my rewatches as an older person, I was just like that this truly does not make sense. Really, I would imagine that Starfleet would want more than just one person in this area. Like I can understand if like, okay, you just pretty much
Oh, I see what you're
bombed
saying.
the like every test we gave you, pretty much just bombed it. Like we don't want you.
So the whole, the whole like, I guess you're right. I don't know if they say it, but they do imply that it's like one person per sector gets to go to Starfleet. And you're
Doesn't
right,
make
that wouldn't
sense.
produce doesn't produce enough Starfleet officers.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to have a lot more than that, which is a future episode of ours. I think that's on the list. Like, of talking about the scale of Starfleet and how people know each other
Mm-hmm.
all the time in it. That's a good point. That is one of those plot holes that should have distracted me from the episode, which is why this is happening. Which is the, as you know, the only kind of plot hole I give any credit to. The rest of the plot holes I don't care about, but the ones that are like very distracting, that should have been one of them. I would agree with that. But accepting what it is, the plot hole that it is, I still feel like his selfless act and the fact that he figured out the test for himself, which was a command decision test that they
Yeah.
bring back later for Troy, but
Yeah.
like a command decision test on like who's going to live and who's not going to live
Yeah.
in the moment, like made sense to me that at the end of the episode where Picard's like, you're going to feel promoted to ensign because I think you got the right stuff, but you know, obviously you're going to have to wait a year before you can go in. Like, I didn't feel like he didn't earn it in that situation.
I would agree. I felt like he did earn it, but I mean, granted, by Picard standards, he. I feel like there was just one thing that Picard should have said to him before he promoted him.
There are four lights.
Which part would have been very confusing to Wesley. Like, what
Especially
lights he
since that
talking
episode
about?
hadn't happened yet. That is definitely a time gap episode. Wesley was at the academy when that happened.
I told you I'm shoehorning that into every episode somehow.
Every episode.
Even if it doesn't make sense, I'm still pushing that thing in there. But I this part, and I feel like in our part 2 of this, we'll probably touch on this more or probably feel different in regards to it. But I would
Okay.
agree with you. The children were not utilized correctly enough, and a lot of them were deemed kind of useless within the series.
It's, def- it's definitely one of those topics that we could deep dive into, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, and spend 2 hours on it on our own to figure out, like, what did the children in Starfleet actually do? And, like,
Yeah.
was it even smart for them to be there from a Starfleet
Yeah.
perspective? Like, were they lying to themselves? But like there's a lot of ways to go with that. Because even though I don't have kids and I was the youngest in my family and I don't even have like the babysitting experience, I'm very pro children. Like, like I recognize that they need to be protected and developed and things like that. I'm not one of these people out here that are like, I'm never gonna have kids or anything like that. It's like I get what special role they play in society, so like it'd be an interesting conversation to talk about. We probably should get Kumla, who certifiably has a little
who
person.
has a child? He could probably talk
Yeah,
about that better than we could. That's a good
yeah.
point. That's a very good point. But as we digress, I feel like we labored on the children for long enough.
Well, and we got to talk about Wesley too, which is on. I don't think he's on either of our lists,
He's not on my
but
list. He's not on my list. I
he's not on my list either. But we've heard people call him useless before, which I don't think he deserves
truly
that.
don't believe he's a useless character. I do believe that he was not utilized very well in the beginning and even close to the end of TNG. But I feel like in the middle, he was utilized very well from by your extension for what you were saying, when he became an acting ensign. I believe that was the part where he started to become more of a useful character in
Yeah,
Star
once
Trek.
they grow up, it's a very it's a very straightforward thing to make them useful. But when they're
Hmm.
little, it's like,
What the hell do we do with them?
yeah, exactly. Which is nothing I'd ever say about a child in real life, but like
Yeah, yeah.
it's in Star Trek, it's like, what is this baby supposed to help me fight the Romulans? I don't I don't know what they're here for.
No, but they did help with the Ferengi. But moving on, so I want to go to my the next one that's on my list. So
Okay.
I'm curious to know how you would feel about this character. I feel that Keiko O'Brien was useless.
Boy, she was really only there in the service of other characters.
Hmm.
She taught Worf how to deliver a baby. She turned O'Brien into a dad. Well, I guess
Hmm.
that's a terrible way to describe it. They started a
Oh,
family together.
yeah,
Would be a better way to
they
describe
got
it.
married and ended up having children. Yes.
One day when I find my person, Dante, that's how I'm gonna refer
They're
to her.
gonna
Like she
turn you
turned me
into
into
a
a dad.
dad. I'll make sure to say that at your wedding. Please don't let me be the one that gives a speech.
Thank you. Well, you'll give one of those like later speeches, not like the speech, but one of those later speeches when everyone's gotten a little toasted, for sure. Which, by the way, unpopular explorers, I'm out here looking, so Anyhow, they can't even like see me, so they don't even know what that context means. Like,
I
do
mean,
we
but
even want you?
it's all
Like,
about personality, isn't that the biggest thing? Like everyone cares about your personality more so than anything else, right?
yeah, that's how you know Dante's been married for a long time. Um,
I've been out the
Anywho.
game almost 11 years, 13 years dating, 11 years married. So, yeah.
Whew, you missed the whole online dating revolution. We're gonna.
Yes. Yes, I'm glad I did.
Goodness gracious, it's made everything worse. Long story short, it's made everything worse, as you know,
So,
because we talk about this. But Keiko,
but Keiko, so the reason why I feel like she's a useless character is because um, every episode that she was a central part of, I really, truly, wholeheartedly believe could have been played by somebody else, and it would not have affected the storyline at all. Not only that, I feel like the times where she was uh, part like a strong character in the storyline, and I'm looking more so at D Space Nine than TNG. Um, I felt like she didn't really add much to the episode and was more annoying than anything.
yeah, the three times I think about Keiko is when she had Molly. That was a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting episode
Mm-hmm.
that pushed Worf's character along.
Yes.
Um, there was the time where she got basically like didn't like being on DS9. Even having like a whole arboretum wouldn't have made her happy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of pushed Miles along to try to figure out like how to make it work. And then there was the time that she was taken over by a Paul Wraith, um, which is probably the
Oh.
most interesting acting that actress was allowed to do as Keiko the whole time. Every time I see Keiko, I'm always surprised that actress came back to play Keiko. I'm like, that check must have been good because I'm like, they're not giving you anything to do.
That's probably that's probably the episode that was the most centralized for her. But like, granted, there was an episode in TNG where she had got taken over by someone as well. Was that one of
No,
her?
no, you're confusing her
Am
with
I
someone
confusing
else
her?
because in the episode where they're no, wait.
Because it was Deanna
There's an
Troy, um,
yeah,
Data.
Miles threatened her because he was taken over by someone else. She was
Oh,
not taken
Miles.
over.
Yes,
She was.
that's what. Okay, that's what I'm confusing.
I didn't think about that. She was in 10 forward like twice at the wrong time, which is amazing. I guess there's no
Yeah.
other bar on the ship, but like she had her kid there and got threatened by her husband while he was possessed by by someone else, and then would later get possessed by someone else and threaten her husband. They have an interesting relationship
Oh,
by
oh,
stuff
oh.
just happening to them.
O'Brien. Period. O'Brien. Period. His whole Starfleet career is like some crap happened to me. Okay. Uh, he's probably the biggest whooping boy in Star Trek. Uh,
Yeah, that's a future episode
oh,
for sure.
that's another good future episode.
She does fall into one of those characters where the most interesting thing that happens is what happens to her,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to like anything she does to like help move the plot along. Like she has no agency.
Yes,
Like
she
it's
doesn't.
just she's just always collateral damage. Even the other interesting thing that happens to her in Deep Space Nine, Kai Wen shows up to her classroom and starts a whole like, should we teach evolution or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
intelligent design
Mm-hmm.
debate in her classroom. Like she wasn't looking for that. She was just teaching the Starfleet thing. Like that could have been anybody.
And once again, they could have created a new character to be the teacher on Deep Space Nine. They could have introduced any random new character that was just like in and out episodes for that particular case, and it still would not have changed the episode in any way.
Yeah, and the closest she comes to saving the day is Rascals, right? Because she's one of the
Yeah,
adults that gets turned into a kid.
with Guy and Picard and Ensign Rowe. Yeah, and that's the closest that you would really give. But even then, like, still, once again, replace her with whatever random adult character they got turned into a child. Like,
Well, so does it do anything to have her as O'Brien's wife? Because does O'Brien become a better hero, a more resilient person? Like Laura Deck says, O'Brien's the most important character, most important person in Starfleet history.
that was a joke that was created because of how much of a whooping boy he was.
Right, right.
But
So I'm because
it's
Keiko's not on my list. I'm trying to figure out, is there something redeeming, and I think you're rapidly convincing me that there's not.
as as someone who's married, um, and can actually point out like multiple things that like have occurred between me and my wife's marriage that uh changed us as people, both of us, and probably would not have occurred if we had not been married.
Hmm.
Looking at their marriage, I can probably only point out maybe possibly one or two instances that they actually showed that would be central to O'Brien's character development, and that was the first episode where she was introduced, and they were going to get married because that was a whole
Mm.
thing. I would probably say like that's probably her most impactful episode, really, because that was Data's growth episode and how close she was
Oh
to the
yeah, that was
O'Briens.
yeah.
So I would probably say that was her most impactful episode, and probably one of the main reasons that she became a series regular. Well, not only the fact that she was O'Brien's wife, but also like she played that episode very well. The actress,
I like
uh,
the actress. Yeah, for
the
sure.
actress, and once again, we'll go back to that. Like the actress in herself is a very good actress. It's the material that's given. And I felt like the writers did their thing with her on that episode. But then after that was just like, what the hell do we do with her?
Yeah, yeah. I think she wasn't on my list, but I think she's fair to be on a list
And
of yeah.
she also is one of those characters as well within the fan base that a lot of people don't like. Especially in Deep
I
Space
mean, we had
Nine.
to.
Because she's always complaining. She is always
She hated being on
complaining.
Deep Space Nine.
Which is
She hated being on Deep Space
understandable.
Nine.
Like in that aspect, I could seriously see like if I was O'Brien and my wife was Keiko, I could see my wife talking to me about this place sucks. like I
If you
truly could see that.
if you went from living on the Enterprise D to something
Yes.
that the Cardassians built,
Yes.
like
Yes.
that would be just your head would be spinning. Like, how did I end up in this
And you
lower tier? Like,
and you have like a
broke.
4 or 5 year old child.
Yeah.
So like
I never once felt like it was unfair for her to be like, I hate the fact that I live here
yes.
with my child.
And but then like I feel like they had a good dynamic for her in the beginning of making her a teacher. I was like, oh, okay, like that's a good premise for her character because then like you can show her like interacting with the children, giving the children more urgency and like showing them like giving them more of a reason of like, oh, this is what they're doing all day and all that stuff. Uh, but then when they blew up said school, and then none of the Bajoran children were
When Kai
one.
Wynn did.
Yeah, well, yeah, when Kai Wynn blew up the school, and then when by that extension the Bajoran children didn't want to come to the school anymore, they pretty much had to axe that, and
In
I
their
felt
defense, I wouldn't want to go to the school that blew up either. But,
yeah, but I
I'm
felt
not an
like that was
X-Man. So,
a different way to do that. Um, and to keep her as being the teacher on board D Space Nine because I felt like that was
hmm
still needed. Uh,
okay.
it's almost like they axed that way ahead of time, and I get it for that storyline that they use with Kai Wynn. Well, she wasn't Kai then; she was just
Vedic Win.
Vedic Wynn.
Which
Yeah.
I got a Vedic that we're going to be putting on the list here in a second. But
Oh
yeah.
wow. Okay, that's funny. Uh, yeah, with Vedic Wynn. So I get that, and that established Wynn's character of being probably one of the main central antagonists for Cisco. Uh, but I felt like after that episode, they could have rebounded her character very well to be like, oh, well, some of the Bajorans realized that like what Wynn was doing and don't really agree with her antics or don't really agree with what occurred there. And so some of them children still came to the school,
hmm
which would have still allowed her to have that. Because after that, they were just like, oh dang, she's not the teacher anymore, but she's still O'Brien's wife, and we still have their little one.
And
So
then they
we
sent her
can't.
to Bajor.
Yeah, it's like we just can't just like X her out of the whole thing because then it'd be like, what happened to her? So they had to give her some reason to not be in a lot of the episodes, which was sending her to Bajor to be a botanist again, which
Which is
I didn't like that.
Yeah, and it's also kind of hilarious given modern TV. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that is a product of its time. I mean, like the D69 writers did a lot of great things, but they'll point out their own faults. Like
Yeah.
in the LGBTQ plus community, um, they didn't do everything right. There was a
Yeah.
trans episode with Quark that is like on their
Oh,
blacklist.
oh no. That is a
Yeah,
terrible episode.
I mean, yeah, and Star Trek's got a few blacklist episodes that we could talk about
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
future conversation. Um, I feel like in modern television, you would know what to do with someone who is not in the power structure that their spouse is in,
Mm-hmm.
and you still want them to be a force. But I feel like back then they had, I'm with you, they had no idea what to do with someone like that who could like maybe
Zero clue.
challenge the power structure but be different and things like that. They kind of were, and they also, it's also the same thing with like when Jake grew up, like they didn't quite know what to do with these people that like didn't have to be Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did it with
Mm-hmm.
Quark effectively
They
because he
did
had
it
like a main
very well
role
with
on the
Quark.
show.
They did it very
Yeah,
well with Quark, and by that
like
extension, Nog and
Rom and
Rom.
Lita and all
Yeah,
of them. Yeah.
they
But
did that
like,
very good, very great. Yeah.
yeah, but like Keiko had potential as like, given her position as wife of the chief engineer, that is also a very smart, intelligent person on her own to
Mm-hmm.
like have an impact. And yeah, they just were like, instead you can go to Bajor, and then you can come back, and then you're a Pari,
And
and
she
then you can evacuate with everyone else.
and
Like, you
she could
know,
have
like
been
it's.
she could have been CPS on Deep Space Nine. Like
Worf, I want to have a conversation with you.
War. Let's have her. Let's talk. Let's.
Why do you not know your son is serving on a Klingon vessel? Have you not talked to him?
Yeah, I just don't think they did. They did not do her justice. They didn't do her well.
She's useless because the writers did her dirty. I
Well,
agree with that.
I do want to. I do want to go back and check too with the writing staff for TNG and also for D Space Nine to see if there were any female writers on the staff because I
Oh
think
shoot.
I think that was probably an issue. And really, I think female writers also could have did the children better as well when
At least
writing more.
historically speaking, yeah.
Yeah. So I am curious about that, and I do want to do research on it. But that's
I will
besides the
give
point.
you I will give you a jump ahead because
Hmm.
obviously DC Fontana is a legendary Star Trek writer from like the original series and did some early TNG episodes. Um,
Hmm.
I watched shoot those that we leave behind or something like that. The D69 documentary. I
Hmm.
watched that actually in theaters because they had a viewing for it here in Atlanta, um, where I live. So Atlanta women, that just gonna throw my plug out there. But anywho, um, and I don't remember seeing a female writer or showrunner anywhere on DS9. So I think you're onto something. I would be shocked if there was, and also if, when you look into it, I would be shocked if there was a writer that was a woman that had like a very meaningful writing role
Yes.
in it.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Because
when they sat down and like they were like, we're gonna break, because there's a little bit in the documentary where they're like, we're gonna break episode 1, season 8 of Deep Space Nine and how it works, and it's all men and it's all white men, quite frankly.
yeah,
Um, so you're onto something there.
I think that's probably going to be a deep analysis we're going to do later as well. Grant, man,
One of our serious episodes.
we've come up with like at least 3-4 episodes just from like
I
talking
hope
about this one
you are
topic.
writing this down.
Oh, 100%. Like it's
Okay,
already written
good.
down. It's already written down.
I wrote the one from earlier, but I haven't written down any of the other
Oh,
ones.
I wrote down the other stuff. Don't worry, we're going there.
Okay,
If
good,
not, then
good.
once I go back to edit this episode, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what we're doing.
There we go. We're supposed to talk about this.
So let's go on to your next one.
Okay.
So far we have the Children of DS9. I mean, not the Children of DS9. The Children of Star Trek. We have Kess. We have Keiko O'Brien. Um, and then who was your first one again? I can't. I'm
Neelix.
drawing a blank. Neelix. Yes, and we have Neelix. So who's your what part of Do This is your last one?
Okay. All right, that's good to know. Give me 1 second. Gosh, because there's
It's so many, isn't it? It's so many.
yeah, you're
Like
right.
we're
There.
already coming up on 2 hours, by the way. So that's what I'm
So
saying.
yeah,
Like
we got to stop.
this
Yeah.
is definitely something we probably need to have a second part
By
on.
by by hour three, we're gonna be like slurring our speech, and no one's gonna understand like what's going on here. God, they're okay. So I'm gonna choose wisely.
Okay.
Indiana Jones reference. I'm gonna try to choose wisely because there's when I look at my list, there's a group from Picard, the show that you never want to talk about on here. That
Hold up. What the Picard? What I don't understand. What
season
is
three was good. Season three was good. You try to forget that, but season three was good, even though you
Oh,
still hated parts of
oh,
season three.
oh! You mean Star Trek: The Next Generation, the last season? Got it. Got it. Got it.
Hey, they got the send off they finally deserved. Okay, I think we can credit that show for that.
There was no such thing as Star Trek Picard. It was just TNG season. I believe what season 8.
Oh my gosh. When we come back to this topic, we're gonna talk about Soji, we're gonna talk about Narissa and Narek, we're gonna talk about Girardi, we're gonna talk
No, we're
about
not.
Elnor,
No, we're not.
we're
No,
gonna
we're
talk
not.
about all of them. There's also I'm torn, so I'm gonna leave them out because we're gonna get to the Picard people some other time.
Hmm.
I'm torn between this, and you're the host of the show, and this is your show, so you
Okay.
tell me what you want to talk about.
Okay, I like this.
I have Vedic Barile
Okay.
as a very useless character. I don't know how much we can talk about him because he's so useless that like
The,
I don't know. And I also just recently learned that on YouTube you have to be careful how you talk about sex. Like
oh,
there's
oh, oh! I missed that
like
one. So okay.
yeah, so like that's a lot of what I would talk about him. Like I have seen on YouTube people who are adults and would talk about it refer to that as specs just to like smecks or just to
Or
like
just say relations.
or relations. Yeah, we can talk about that. I have two people from Enterprise, Mayweather and Sato, that we could talk about. So I
Between
will
those
give you
three.
yeah.
Okay, so I have thoughts about all three. Okay. Um
Okay. Do you want to take on all three or do you want to choose if we're going to talk about
I
a
think
DS9 character
I think I'm gonna put
or
this in a
Enterprise view?
category from how I feel that they're more useful to the least useful. So let me start
Okay.
off with Soji. She I feel like she's useful.
Wait a minute.
She's a useful character.
Sato, you mean?
Sato, excuse me.
Sato.
I don't know why I said
Okay.
Soji. Uh
Because you're dying to
oh
talk about Picard. It's
no, I don't. I don't. I do not.
you need
Please,
to talk about
no,
Picard. You need to get it
no.
out. You need to get it out.
Sato. It's a
Hoshi
Sato.
Sato. Yeah. Ensign
Um,
Sato.
she was very useful. There was a lot of episodes that she was sexualized in uh, that drove the plot and the storyline of Star Trek Enterprise. Also, at the same time, she was the one that created the Universal Translator. They showed that in one of the episodes in season 4. She was
Sure, she's a wizard.
she was technically the Universal Translator for the Enterprise because they in the beginning she thought she was which is funny she in the beginning she thought she was useless to Captain Archer.
Her first speech to
Oh,
him is, "You don't
but
need me for this."
yes, but when they had to communicate with one of the species, she was instrumental in being able to talk to them. So not only was that growth for her character, but also showed whole the instance of needing a communications officer, which by that extension goes into the original series and shows how really useful into Uhura, Lieutenant Uhura, excuse me, was. Uh,
Well, I mean, we've seen her all the way from cadet at this point with Uhura.
yeah, yeah. Which is why I said ensign, because she's ensign on Strange New Worlds. So I'm kind of like stuck there right now. But in TOS, she was lieutenant.
So the only reason why Hoshi Sato is on my list um, is not because I honestly
Mm-hmm.
think the actress that plays her should date me. So
Gorgeous,
uh,
gorgeous actress, gorgeous.
if you're out there, you wanna level up, girl.
Well,
Let me know.
she is not going to give you the time of day. Uh, not only is she gorgeous, she is also very talented in
I know.
her acting abilities. I've actually seen her in other things besides Star Trek. But keep going.
Yeah. Well, anywho, back to the drawing board. It it felt like um, that a lot of the episodes where she was central, it felt like it was just stuff that was happening to her. I think basically this is starting to unveil my bias against passive protagonist. I
Hmm.
prefer active
Mm-hmm.
protagonist, and I think most
Mm-hmm.
people do. But like, I'm starting to realize that through this conversation that I'm like really dinging passive protagonist, even though John Wick is technically a passive protagonist, and I don't um, consider him useless as well. So I will set that aside. So that's the only thing. Like I kind of think about her episodes with having really rewatched all of them
Mm-hmm.
as event happens and she knows how to handle it. So she kind of falls into like the, oh, you really know how to do your job really well kind of thing. Where we see Uhura do a bunch of different stuff over the course of her Starfleet career. That she gets to play a more active role in. So I kind
Yeah.
of see her as a little bit different as a communications officer between the two.
Yeah, but you're also like, okay, where TOS had what, 4 seasons, and each season had like 80 episodes. I'm being facetious. It was like it
It
was
was a lot.
close to about 30. So it was a lot. And then when you got
Our rewatch of
into,
that's going to take a while.
oh, it is. Uh, and then going into the early 2000s of that, how shows were structured then, it only had 4 seasons, and each season only had up to about roughly, what, 18 episodes a piece.
Yeah,
So,
18 or 20. Yeah.
like, by that extension, yeah, you were going to see Uhura in more situations than Sato. But I also feel like the situations they had put her in were actually pretty impactful. That one episode that I pointed out where had she was the reason why they didn't go to battle with a particular race, because she was able to talk to them. Um,
Yeah. There was an episode like that. Yeah.
and so, like, and I feel like that there are other episodes that I could probably point out that are kind of eluding me right now because I haven't done a
But there's also
rewatch of
so many
Enterprise in a minute.
episodes where like it was just her building her confidence. Like I want to step on the transporter pad, or they went to Ryza and she had relations.
Well,
Like she was like, which okay. Also,
mhm.
I don't want that to be read the wrong way by the woman audience. Like I don't think having relations have relations when you want to, women. Like that's not
I mean, of
that's what
course,
I'm trying to say.
you're
But like,
you're basically saying that, like, it's pretty much what the writers felt that she was all good for. Like, she didn't
yeah,
have like
exactly.
a strong character development besides that.
Yeah, yeah. Like she did her job really effectively, and then every once in a while something weird would happen to her,
Hmm.
and that would be a key part of an episode. And then she'd just go right back to doing her job, which is probably the bulk of the woman experience
Well, Star Trek
worldwide. But like,
Star Trek in the beginning really had that really bad with the female characters. It was like they always had them as like damsels in distress and not really. And they,
that's a good point.
granted, with TNG, they tried to buck that. They tried their best, I should say, to buck that system with with Yar. Uh, but
Yeah,
then you had Deanna Troy, was just like, okay, you're trying to show a strong female character, but then you have Deanna Troy, who is the damsel in distress, and it's like you're conflicting what you're trying to do here.
yeah, that's a good point. I'm not going to put too much of a fight on her because we still have Mayweather. It's in there. Actually, I think you kind of, much like with Neelix, you kind of turned me around. Where like, I can't totally call her useless, even though like I don't know a ton of what she
Gra-
did. But
Granted,
like, yeah,
you haven't rewatched Enterprise as much as I have.
I think that's a big information disadvantage. You're right. And you know what? The next time I rewatch Enterprise, I'll keep an eye out for that.
And I almost would agree with you. Almost would agree with you with Mayweather. Um,
I'm
but
actually
so
surprised you're disagreeing with me on Mayweather.
well, I'm disagreeing with you with the Enterprise cast as a whole,
Okay.
and that's mainly because the whole purpose of Star Trek Enterprise was to show the infancy of Starfleet, like to show like they were the ones that pretty much wrote the regulations that a lot of the other series follow.
Yeah, they
And
were the crew where the
uh-huh.
weird stuff happened to them, and they learned safety protocols, and
Hmm.
yeah,
And even by that extension, Mayweather as being the pilot of the first Warp 5 starship for Starfleet, he had certain parts where he was really a central character. Granted, he didn't have enough of them. He didn't have a lot of them like some of the other characters did. Uh, but one particular episode that I really enjoy about him was when they showed his background of him being because he was a freighter kid,
yeah.
which was one of my
He grew up
favorite.
in space.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite episodes because they actually show like a different dynamic of how other people live in this universe, and just seeing that aspect was pretty cool. And it's kind of hard for me to say if you switched him out with another character that it would be as an impactful as it was because that was a growth episode for Mayweather because it allowed him to like not only get close with his father but also understand some of the things that his father did when they were younger because he had a lot of animosity of how his father raised him.
Yeah, and I think when we do the part two of this, which
Uh-huh.
I agree we're gonna have to do because we haven't talked about villains, admirals, like
Yes.
a bunch of folks, and like you said, we're probably at 2 hours or past 2 hours at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like with Mayweather, all that is true. I think he easily makes the Starfleet Hall of Fame. Like if that was like a real thing, like I would
Mm-hmm.
expect to see that whole crew, like with statues at the beginning of the Hall of Fame. I think when you look back on the episodes, I
Mm-hmm.
can't think of an episode where he saved the day or the thing that was interesting about him wasn't something that happened to him. Like it's again that whole passive
I would
protagonist
agree.
thing.
I,
I
I
think
I can see that. Yeah.
yeah. Like I think about the episode where he gets they all think that he's been unalived and like they
Mm-hmm.
hook him up and it's actually like an alien like hooked him up to machines to power like their station or whatever,
But by
and they
your
had to go like save him.
but by one of your things you said earlier in the episode, it's something that happened to him, not him driving that episode.
Yeah, I can't think of his like hero moment where it's like, oh, I piloted the ship out of danger, or I dodged that torpedo at the last moment. And oddly enough, they gave it to Paris. They gave one to Crusher. They
Yeah, but
gave
I would. So I believe that was because of how the show had to end because it only had 4 seasons. Because if you think about Paris's development and even Crusher's development, if they had ended though TNG and Voyager at season 4, do you think you would say the same thing about them? And I'll argue possibly not. Possibly.
wait. You're saying it for Paris and for Crusher, if they had ended. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see
Okay.
what I'm saying? Like because Enterprise was only had 4 seasons, where Voyager had 7, TNG had 7, so they had more episodes that they could make them more of a central character where they could save the day.
I think
And
you're
the,
right
and
because I would. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. And then with him being an ensign as well, because you know they pointed this out. You being the ensign, the likelihood of you being in command is very slim. Everybody else would have something would have to happen to everybody else before you became the person in the commanding chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which they didn't have that for Kim until season 4 of Voyager. That's when he started taking on night shifts. But like
Mm-hmm.
truly, fully, not until later in season 5 and even 6 that they show Ensign Kim. And by that time, really, in normal situations, he would have been a lieutenant by that time.
I wholeheartedly agree. For him and Sato, actually, I think if this was a 7 season series like we're used from Star Trek, they probably both would have had episodes that would have been much more action
Mm-hmm.
packed, much more save the day, much more take command, much more like, oh wow, yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
like you were very active and doing. Yeah, you're right. Because honestly, as I think about it, it's the same thing with the children, right? Like once you have junior officers,
Yeah, that's actually a
it
good
is
point.
about how they respond to things, not necessarily what they know what to do.
Yeah.
Versus when you have senior officers who are like supposed to know how to figure this out, and maybe that's the benefit of us being, you know, over 35. I won't give away our ages here, but it's like, oh yeah, you know what? My 21-year-old self, it was a much more interesting story in what I was responding to versus what I know to do
Yeah, because
right now.
if like let's say like someone wrote a series about your life and then they started off where you are currently, it would kind of be boring, really. Like
Yeah.
if you and I'm not saying like your life is boring. I'm also saying that from my
No,
standpoint as well.
no. I
Like
feel like we're both at like very exciting points in our life, but you're right. It would be very different.
then from our 20s, like there
Yeah.
was a tons of situations that happened in my 20s that I'm just like, oh, this could be gold for TV.
Yeah, yeah. But it wasn't stuff we like actively thought to put ourselves into. We were just reacting
It just
to
happened. Yeah.
this and that and that
Yeah.
and that, and stuff got wild and
And
we
then
made
part of
it.
it was us growing.
Yeah.
That's the other
Yeah.
thing. Part of it was us growing, learning, understanding. Like, I mean, I could tell you a lot of situations that I'm just like, I wasn't really the safest in this particular situation, but the younger me did not even like compute that I was in this particular situation.
Right. You look back on it and you're like, why was I there? What was I doing?
Nine times out of 10, it was because of some girl. if I'm
Mostly.
being real with myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Mayweather and Sato get hit by that, and it would have been interesting to see them not be useless in any arguable capacity with a 5, 6, or 7
Mm-hmm.
season of Enterprise. Which, if they ever revisit Enterprise, I hope they bring those characters back to see what they did
Mm-hmm.
after their careers. You're right. We caught them like very early career where you are
But
can be very skilled and very talented and very insightful, but also not like all that useful. Which is, man, if I had to go back and tell my 22-year-old self that statement, he would swing on me. He'd be
he
like,
would
"What
really
happened
be
to you?"
upset. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be so
The
mad.
hell you
He'd be
talking
so
about?
mad.
What do you mean this doesn't matter?
Exactly, exactly.
So okay,
So,
so
well, hang on.
uh
Before
huh.
before you do that, my meal delivery is here. So, do you want to pause or do you
Oh
want to
yeah,
try
yeah.
to?
We can pause. We can pause right now.
Okay,
I kind of use the restroom anyways. I was going to power through, but like we can do that. So
okay.
we're gonna take a quick break, real quick, and then we'll be right back.
Yep.
Okay, we are back from break. So we were discussing Patrick's, uh, I would say final, not necessarily
For
final
now.
because we're
Yeah.
probably gonna more than likely going to have a part two, but he made the point of three characters that he didn't know fully would be more useless, which was Ensign Sato, Ensign Mayweather from Star Trek Enterprise, and then Vedic Baral from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So we already touched on Mayweather and Sato. Um,
We
now,
ticked off my 22-year-old self who felt like he was one of those ensigns that's like, no, I mean something. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm like, that's great. It's
well,
true. You do mean something.
I want to touch on Vedic Baral. And the funny thing is, if you hadn't brought up Sato and Mayweather, I would have had a lot to push back on with Vedic Baral because I feel like his character was very central with the growth of uh, Kira and her character.
Hmm. Oh,
Not
yeah, it
just
was.
as a romantic
Hmm.
interest, no,
There was a lot of growth.
not just as a romantic interest, but
I think
up
she felt that growth.
up until oh my god, up until that
Sorry,
point,
Internet.
up until that point of Vedic Baral being introduced, you always showed Kira as this stronger female character,
Hmm.
which I totally agree with. Like the what her backstory for her character would have suggested that she would uh, grow to be this type of person by this point in her life. All that made sense. So, but you never saw a softer side of her. You never saw that part that was just like, oh, there's the human part of her. So that's where Vedic Baral came in to show her that she could fall in love. She could be softer when it comes to someone that she feels like that she can be comfortable around and show that different side of her and not have to be that strong person at all times. She could fully like let down her guard and be just a regular person around another human being. And by
That said,
uh-huh.
yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but
Well, before then, there wasn't an instance that showed that. Like you had flashes, but not to that degree that the character Vedic Baral allowed her to be.
yeah, I think if you're saying, hey, this lays the foundation for her falling in love with Odo and learning how to be vulnerable with him and things like that, that is a big development in the series um, that gets resolved mildly tragically, quite frankly.
Yeah,
At the end of the thing, at the end of the series, with what we leave behind, um, I do think him as a character, though, moving the events of the series, he is totally useless outside of what he the outside of the relations.
and between the three of them, I would say he would be the most useless. However, it's hard for me to say that he is a useless character because I feel like him for Kira is the same thing as Ambassador Kalar for Worf because it was a character that they
Ooh,
created to be a romantic interest to show a softer side of a strong willed character that at some point they probably had plans of yeah this character's probably going to die excuse me going to be unalived at some point. I keep doing
we'll
that.
bleep that out.
Yeah, we'll bleep
Yeah,
that
because we want to
out.
talk like human beings, not like random internet people.
Exactly.
But yeah,
uh I'm pretty sure, and granted, like yeah, when they created the characters in the beginning, they probably didn't have the full arc that oh this person is going to be unalived at some point, but you could tell that this was something that probably could be the normal occurrence with that character. which also goes to the point of showing, like, for instance, with Worf and Kalar passing, showing how that looks from the Klingon standpoint of what happens when you unalive someone's mate, and what the Klingons do to rectify that situation, which was mwah, perfect.
So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to disagree a little bit on this because I think Kalar is useful on her own because she diffused a situation with the like time trap Klingons or whatever who thought the war was still going on.
Mm-hmm.
That led to that union that produced one of the more useless characters,
Mm-hmm.
Alexander. But she only got unalive because she was pushing a mystery that they were all solving and
Mm-hmm.
got to the end of it before everyone else. Which, if you're a fictional character, don't get to the end of the mystery before everyone else.
I I would agree that from the character arcs, she was probably the stronger character between the two. However,
Yeah.
Vedic Baral was also used within Deep Space Nine to be that religious leader that helped after the original Kai. Uh, she didn't pass away. She was just
I
she
thought
was
she got blown up in a ship, though. Like, I thought she.
no, no, she. So what happened was they went to a planet that they were searching, that they were, like, investigating and whatnot, that she wanted them to go to. And then when they got to that planet, it was like a prison planet where they had, like, the system that didn't allow anybody to pass away. So it was like, oh, you get stabbed and all of a sudden then you're, like, miraculously healed and you're
Hmm.
alive. But if you left that planet after being unalived at any point, you were going to be
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
unalived. So
that's what
she
happened to
couldn't
her.
leave
And
that
she got
planet.
messed up. Yeah. So, yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point.
so
Not a good
Vedic
point, but
was
good summation.
the bridge. Vedic Baral was the bridge Vedic uh,
No,
for
no, he
that.
didn't get to be Kai.
He didn't. But that was the person that Cisco was trying to uh, become the next Vedic
Oh yeah,
to
it was like
oppose Win.
the 2016-2024 election. Like we all
Oh
wanted
wow!
one thing to happen, and then something different happened, and we all had to live with what happened,
but by but
not
by
what we wanted to happen.
but by that extension, though, they also showed how capable Vedic Baral was, and even in the episode where he did pass, they showed that Win needed Vedic Baral because he was the better diplomat between the two of them. So he was essential. Now, I would give you, did they have multiple instances within the show that showed that, like, he saved the day? No, no, he did not. So that's why I have him, like, third from Sato and Mayweather.
So, and third being closer to uselessness.
Yeah.
Um, I agree with all that, and you have definitely done the most recent rewatches. So like, I appreciate that I went off the dome on like somewhat aging information, and you're inspiring me to like go back and be like, all right, you know what, I need to rewatch all this. When we keep doing a Star Trek podcast, my
Hmm.
recollection of him versus Kalar, because Kalar, I remember her being pretty much a badass, like
Yeah, but she
on
was
her
only in,
own
like,
in
what,
this.
2, 3 episodes,
I think she was only in 2 episodes, but like,
which was a total disservice to that character because that was
oh
probably
man,
one of my favorite side characters in Star Trek.
they should have never killed her off.
I
She
would
would have been
agree.
such a great foil for Worf for
I
years
would
and years and
agree.
years that it was short. It's on almost on the same level of short sighted of killing off Jadzia, as opposed to just like letting
Yeah,
her fly away and teach at the academy
yeah.
or whatever. Um, Like it
Worf had
is.
some strong love interests. Now that I'm really thinking about it,
Oh yeah, that's true. They both
like
were. Yeah.
like really good characters that are like fan favorite characters. I don't I don't think I'm going too far with saying that. Like
No, no, no.
I'm pretty sure
A
fans would
conversation
agree
between
with that.
Jadzia and Kalar would have been a very
Oh,
interesting
oh, that would
episode
be
of
awesome.
something in the future. Yeah. So I don't ever think of Kalar being useless because she only showed up like twice, and when she was there, she had a big impact on the outcome of the episode. And like, she might not be like in the Starfleet Hall of Fame because they cut her off too short, um, or at
I would
least
put
Duras
her
did.
I would put her in the Starfleet Hall of Fame for uh, best side characters.
Yeah, yeah. But Barile, to me, all I remember him being is a himbo to Kira, and just
I,
being some good relations to Kira, and that made Kira grow, like you said, as a person, like kind of exit that warrior stage of her life and rediscover that lover stage
uh-huh.
of her life that becomes very important.
Very
But
important with
then all I
the
remember
romance
him
with
is
her and
like,
Odo. Uh huh.
right. But then all I remember him is just being like, "Hey, you're supposed to beat Kai and win in this election, and then you got." Like, I just don't remember him doing anything else except being
I
good and physical to Kira, and then just getting got
I
unalive
can't
when we needed
disagree
him.
with you. I cannot disagree with you.
I'm
which
like
is why,
useless.
which is why, which is why I put him at last on that list. Because I was like, if anyone was the most useless character out of those three, it would be Vedic Morale. And I would try to defend him as best as possible.
Which you
But
did a great job with.
I
You
truly don't
did.
have a leg to stand on. That was one of those. Like, and this is what I'm realizing, like from the previous episode where you kept telling me, like you actually did a pretty good job. You just had the worst side of it.
Hmm.
Like with like being able to tell you how I felt about the other two was like a good defense of those two. But I didn't have nothing with Benedict I
Well, you
tried.
got
I tried with Benedict, but like
that's the other thing about law school. Sometimes you got nothing and you still gotta say
you
something.
still got to say
So
something.
make it good. Make it good.
So I appreciate this episode just for that. So I would give you your third one being Vedic Baral. Um, Inchin, Hoshi and Mayweather, like it.
If there had
They
been a season 5, we wouldn't be having this
I feel
conversation
like
because I
it would be
think
a
both of
totally
them.
different question. Yeah, I
Yeah.
truly feel like if Enterprise had the same run as all the others, we would be saying something different. We would either be saying that they had pretty good character arcs or they wouldn't use correctly.
Right.
We would say that because we agreed that Chakotay was not used correctly, but we don't believe that he's useless.
No, not at all.
So that's how I feel about them. So I'll give you Vedic Parral. I'll concede that one.
Hey, Kira might disagree because she had some fun
Yeah.
in the midst of it, but for the rest of us, it's like, man, I just need you to beat Kai Wynn. You have fallen into the 2016 election feeling,
Yeah.
2004 election feelings for those of us who are geriatric millennials.
Oh, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, I think I misremembered because I believe she had another love interest before Vedic Baral, which was the the strong commander when they were going through the occupation. Uh,
Oh, interesting.
that they ended up recruiting to be like one of the leads for the Bajoran
Oh,
government.
yeah.
I believe
Because he ends up
that
turning
was.
on them.
Does he turn? I don't. He doesn't.
No, he doesn't turn on them.
Yeah, he
He
doesn't turn him, but he does end up. Dang, why is anybody that's like he passed away? Didn't he? He got
I
didn't he?
don't no, I don't think he get I don't think he got at the
They
there was
broke up.
something where like
They broke up.
I think they broke up for sure. I
Yes.
think that was the tragedy of that because okay, I don't know if he turned on, but I thought he was the one that led a bunch of Bajorans to take the station back over for a little bit, and she helped Starfleet take it back over, and then they end up splitting. I might
No,
be
no, he was
mixing
part.
storylines there.
He was part of the group that did. No, he did pass
Oh
away.
shoot!
He
Yep,
did
yep.
pass
He got
away.
shot. Yep.
Yes. Yes.
You're right. You're right. He did. He did.
So it's
In the
like
very final battle, he
anyone
got.
that's Major Kira's love interest, like that's not Odo.
Yep, he got shot
Wow.
real good in the last battle of that because everyone was like, "No,
Yeah.
we needed
We
him,"
needed
and yeah,
him.
it
Yeah.
was.
And then that's when Bennett Brown came into play because they was like, we need another strong. Yeah. Okay.
Hey man, when
So
Major Kira shows up on your hinge, hit X.
swipe. Hold on, what is it? Swipe left, swipe right. I don't know.
On Tinder and Bumble, you can swipe left.
Okay,
Yeah.
swipe left. Okay. You know I don't know
Swipe
these
left
things.
on
I'm
Major
sorry.
Kira. You're gonna get got. Unless you're a
So
shapeshifter.
even with that, I will definitely concede that. Okay, I'll definitely allow him to be on this list as a useless character. One
Yeah, I
hundred
think
percent.
Burrell was and the funny thing is I like his character design, and
Yes.
the actor did a great job with it,
Yes.
and he hit a lot of emotional notes when you're like watching it, but when you think back on it, it's like,
I feel
yeah,
like they
you didn't
went
need to be
into the
here.
relations way too early on that. I feel like they didn't allow the relationship to.
It was a speed run to
It
relations.
was. It
Absolutely.
was. I feel like
Because he
if
showed up one day, and then I think like the next day, he was like putting his underpants back on in her quarters. Like, it was, it was fast.
yeah, yeah. So okay, I'll concede that 100%. All right, my last one.
Okay,
This is gonna be an interesting one for you.
we'll see. We'll see
I
if we hit 3 hours.
I feel like you might give me some pushback. Okay,
Okay.
Fleet Admiral Elena Nechayev. She was totally useless.
Ah, First off, I thought it would have been hilarious if for a second you were like, you might give me pushback on this one, and then you said like Spock.
To be honest with you, I was truly thinking about saying something like that. That was gonna be like totally controversial, but it's like we're getting really too tight on
We're,
time here. So
we're way over time. Yeah, exactly. We don't have time for a Spock joke.
yeah,
We all
yeah,
know Spock is useful.
yeah, definitely.
The most useful. Oh, right, there we go. We can do the other side of it. Who's the most useful
Oh,
Star Trek character?
that would definitely be longer
Yeah.
than this episode. We would have to have like
Yeah.
8 episodes just for that one topic. Um,
Yeah.
I felt like Admiral Nechayev's character was only created to be a decisive commander to counter Picard, where Picard
But
is the moral center on certain things. It's almost like every time she came around, she was giving Picard an order to do something that was against his better judgment.
because she was the one that was basically like, hey, if you have another huge situation on your hand, don't do what you did.
Yes. Yes.
And she was also the one that he had, I think, a really hard time trying to convince to cast the net to keep the Romulans from interfering in the Klingon Civil War.
I
Like, it wasn't like
think
that hard of
so.
a time, but like, well, no, actually,
I don't.
I don't think that's right.
I can't
I don't think
remember
that's
if she
right.
was the admiral used for that. It's
No, she
possible.
wasn't. There were two different ones, and I'm remembering her. She
What
was
There's two
She
instances
was
that
his
I think
op.
of with her. It's that one with the Hughes situation, and then the other one was when they were displacing the Native Americans from another planet. Like
Oh yeah, the
she
space
was,
Native Americans.
yes, and she was the admiral that ordered him to displace them. It's like every time she was brought up, it was always to be the immoral commander
Right.
to push the captain to like wrestle with his morals.
Yeah, she was Space Andrew Jackson for sure. I remember that.
That was too funny. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
That
It's
threw me
funny and
off.
sad. I am from Tennessee, and I'm a Democrat from Tennessee, and I got things to say about Andrew Jackson. Don't you even get me started. I'm
So
trying to see. I'm looking up right now to see while you're talking if she was in other episodes. That wow, the first thing that popped up is a YouTube video that's like Admiral Nechayev is the worst.
she is. She is. And then the other time outside of TNG that she was shown was in Deep Space Nine when they were like, this was when they first came in contact with the Dominion and they first like showed the Defiant. And granted, this wasn't a real reality because they were in this like machine where they made up this particular reality. But Nechayev was the one telling Cisco, "Oh, we're making peace with the with the Dominion. We're giving all this capital and stuff up." Da 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 da. And they made her once again the heel in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only time that her character is brought out, and granted, like the actress who embodied her did
Don't hate the
such
actress.
a good job. Such a
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like Joffrey for Game of Thrones. Like did such a good job, but that you could do nothing but dislike her. Like you could not find a sympathetic bone in your body for her.
Yeah, because she's also like I'm looking at a picture right now. Like if I had to like cast a
Mm-hmm.
Karen in a movie, like I would go get this actress to do that. I won't say her name so that you hateful people on the internet won't track her down. But like, yeah, like if I needed an actress to like utter the N word in a movie under her breath, like
Oh, 100%.
I would get her to do it.
100%. She would be the actress. Now I don't know how
God,
the actual actress in real life would feel about that, but she would be the
well,
one that I would
I hope
want to
she liked the
cast.
chat, and I hope she's a different person than how
I
Star Trek portrays her
I
in
hope
real.
so too. I like I said, I really love and appreciate her as an actress and how because I feel like any actor or actress that could make you uh, that embodies the character so well to the point to where you have a strong affinity for that character did their job to the utmost. And you have some instances where it's in spite of the writers, and then you have other instances where the writers also did a good job with setting up that actor or actress for to embody that character.
Yeah, but I'm looking at her. I'm skimming her in Memory Alpha
Hmm.
right now, and like every time she's there to be like, the thing you did as a good guy, you should have done the opposite thing
Hmm.
on Deep Space Nine and TNG. So she's consistent.
I believe she was also the admiral that sent Picard on that there are four lights uh, expedition.
Yes, she is that admiral. She
So
gave us. She sent Picard on that mission and gave us Captain Jellicoe. Yeah,
yeah,
and gave us Jellicoe.
yeah. Unless you have an argument against that,
Okay, the only argument I have against this is we hate her. We hate her.
100.
We
percent
all agree that we hate her. Is she actually useless? She seems to make stuff happen. She just makes stuff happen that we don't like Andrew Jackson.
Your parallels here from her and Andrew Jackson are really strong. Uh,
We hate Andrew Jackson, but was he useless? He
okay,
did stuff
I'll go
that
back
we
to my
hate.
definition at the beginning of the episode, which is if you took her out, what could the episode still be an episode? Like if you replaced her with somebody else, and
Well, see, that's the thing. Like that is like at the border of your rule. Is that
yes, I would agree.
like okay, sure, we could put another Badmiral in there,
Yes,
but like that doesn't make the Badmirals useless as villains. And I think we have a list of useless villains that we can revisit later. But like, are they a useless antagonist? Like, just because you could like give her a different name, right? I don't know. I don't know what to do with the ones that like, ooh, because they're the ones that were like, I don't like the character. They feel useless to me. I love the character, and even though they're useless, I'm gonna still love them. And then now we're getting into the ones where we're like, ugh, I hate this character.
but like
But are they useless?
I feel like a lot of the characters that we stated were useless were characters where at the beginning they were this person, and then even at the last time that you saw them, they were the same person. It was like nothing changed, no arc, nothing that made them be different than what they were when you first saw them.
Mm-hmm.
With Keiko, the only thing you can really say is that from the first time you saw her to the last time you saw her was, oh, she became a wife, she became a mother. That's it. Like,
Which are major events in the lives of people.
they
Yeah.
are, but they're not substantial to the character, nor did they make her character be looked at
They
or
didn't change her
viewed in a
character.
different
Yeah.
way. Yeah, it was almost like she was the exact same person, and that's how I feel like with Nechayev. I don't like from the first time you saw her to the last time you saw her, she was just a mean and hateful admiral. Like really, and you never fully saw an area where she softened up or showed a different side of her.
Yeah, but I don't know if lack of character development makes you useless. Because I don't know how different Miles O'Brien was from being chief engineer of DS9 from the red shirt dude that was like working ops in the first episode of TNG, right?
Right,
Like I don't know if you
to the last time that you actually saw him.
like we saw him for the first time ever
Uh huh.
like encounter at Farpoint running ops or what should be ops. I don't know if it was ops in that episode, but
Hmm.
he's like just a nameless red shirt. To the last time we saw him heading off to like go teach at the academy, teach engineering at the academy. Like maybe he was just a good dude. So like this is where it gets hard to craft a protagonist, and it's kind of like the Superman Captain America problem, where like some protagonists just stay the same with the world around them and the way the world challenges them. They're not necessarily passive in the way that they respond to the world, where it's just like, oh, this is happening to me, and now the story is just about what's happening to me.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, I have active choices in the way that's the world's changing around me and how I'm trying to stay the same person. And that makes them a very like active protagonist, even though they didn't change and make a big story development arc. That's Superman, that's Captain America. Some people really, really have to change over time, like Iron Man,
Hmm.
and the events of movies and stuff like really change them as a character. So I don't really like look at the fact that someone that we don't like Nechayev, doesn't change at all. It just means that she was awful the whole time, and she's making active choices to stay in that lane, which is what it looks like it is. with Journey's End and how she appears on Deep Space Nine and all that stuff. So that's where I start to be like, I don't know if she's useless or in
I
terms of that she's like a passive protagonist or like she's just the same SOB that we always see when she shows up.
I
Like
see what you're
she's
saying. I see what you're saying. I see the direction that you're going there with. But like I also look at the character of like Kalar, where you could agree that like from the first time you saw her to the last time that you saw her, you could see that there was a significant change within her character, even from
it's
the
always more interesting when
minimum.
they change.
It is,
Hmm.
and I guess that's okay. One thing I will concede with this, and we're going to have another episode in regards to
As we
this.
approach hour
This
three.
this was already on our list, by the way. I understand why some people don't like Star Trek Discovery, and
Mm,
this topic and researching said topic made me understand that more than what I have
okay.
previously, and that's because um, Star Trek has always been about the characters and the unusual situations that they are in. And it's more so a lot of times their episodes are more so dialogue driven and less action based driven. Like you have some action here and there, but you have a lot of episodes where no action really ever happened. A lot of it is dialogue based driven, and which puts the characters in certain situations that allow a lot of growth, a lot of change, even a lot of the side characters, characters that you don't see that much, like Kalar, that you also see growth in as well. You didn't see a lot of that in Discovery, and I would agree with this. You probably saw that within the main people, which is Burnham, uh, uh, um, Saru, but like a lot of the other cast members, you didn't see a lot of that in. You'll probably say like I probably could name like 4 or 5 characters that had like significant arcs and changes within the life of Discovery.
Hmm.
Versus other series where like TNG, like TNG, this is why TNG is held at like probably one of the highest epitones of Star Trek, was because a lot of the characters, even the side characters, had significant arcs and you knew a lot about them. You knew their backstories, you knew how they were beforehand. Then by the last time you saw them, you knew how they were, how they had what they had become, I should say. So that's where it's hard for me with Nechayev,
Okay.
because she's just the same person the first time you saw her, the exact same person the last time you saw her, and you didn't get any additional pieces there that made her seem different. It's just like it's literally like it, put any actor or actress for this character that was named differently than Nechayev, and it would have had the same premise.
Okay. Okay. So I think if I were, because I don't think her role as an admiral is useless because she's
No,
pushing our protagonist.
yeah,
Um, I think she falls maybe a bit into the writers did her dirty because if you're gonna bring someone back that many times, then you got to give them some type of direction,
that's possible.
some type of change.
That's possible that I can give you, because there was never an instance that like these crazy situations that she would tell uh, Picard to be in. There was never an instance where it was just like, look, I understand the situation and it's tough. This is a tough call to make. I like where she softened and like understood
Mm-hmm.
Picard's um, pushback with it.
Right.
And even then, even with the and really, I feel like the best time for to do that was when the whole Native American episode occurred, where she could have pointed out, "Look, I know I've been hard on you in the past with certain situations when it comes to this, and I understand why you feel this way. But what I'm trying to tell you is we have this agreement with the Cardassians, and if we go against this agreement, it could cause a major stellar war. We like literally in this particular situation, we have no choice. You have to do your duty. I'm sorry.
Right.
Like it would have been it would have softened her. It would have still showed her as that hard nosed admiral. Like we have to do this. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. But it still would have showed like some humanity with her, some softness, some 24th century type person would have been in that particular situation. Because they made her too
Yeah.
callous in that situation, way too callous.
And they did it to her every time. Because
Yes,
every time we saw her, it was it was just, hey, this is it. The hero decision you made last season was not a hero decision, and I hate you for it. And now go do this awful stuff I'm telling you to do that you're gonna have to think yourself out of. And that's all she was. She was one note, which is, I think your issue, and I think we could argue whether one note is useless, but we've already stipulated that like the writers doing you
the
dirty
writers
can make
could
it
have done it
useless,
better. Yeah.
which makes you useless. So I think I've taken a longer journey to your point, but I think we've ended up at about the same place. I'm like, yeah, she is, her specifically is fairly useless because, like you said, anyone, they could have changed her last name and cast someone different each and every time. Why did they keep bringing her back? Now
Well,
that I think about it, they could
she's
have
such
just
an awesome actress. She's such an awesome
okay,
actress that's
yeah,
already been pre-established. Like I understand why they would bring her back, but I just felt like every rendition of her they could have like added something to her. I felt like they were going that direction with like I believe the second time that they showed her because she was
mm-hmm.
coming in and like Picard was like, "Yeah, I'm like special brewing this tea just for her." Like, cause like I feel like every time we talk, it's like some adversarial back and forth. So I'm trying to like soften it in a way, and
Right,
they did that in a way. And she even like showed a soft side before she left. She was like, "I appreciate that, but you don't have to." Like so, like it showed the soft side of her, but also at the same time like the hard nosed part still was dominant, which I appreciated that. But then it's like
yeah.
the next time you showed her, you should have built on that. Like showed more softness with her and not just like her being this hard nosed like admiral that's just like
Yeah.
do what I
Well,
do what I say or else, like basically.
I I will say in your argument, don't venture into the people that we don't like as character, like I did with Neelix. To
Yeah.
the people that we don't like as characters, just being people we think is useless. But I think you do think I think you have it on an argument and have a thought where like, yeah, she is actually kind of useless given how one note they did it, and yeah, it's it's a good one to wrap up on. We got a ton more left if
We
you want to go for another
and
3 or 4 hours, but
yeah, and I wanted to point and I did want to point that out. Um that we have a lot on the list other than this. Like I could talk forever about Admiral Eric Pressman. Um, he was another person that I put on the list. You put on the list Eleanor from. Uh, uh,
Elnor, not Eleanor.
for some reason, I keep saying Eleanor on that. Elnor, you're right. Um, from Star Trek, that series. Uh, Also Soji. Also, uh, what was the doctor's name on that series? That became the useless
Oh,
Borg queen,
Girardi.
Girardi. Oh, like I feel like she's probably at the top of that list. Um, there are a number of them that we can touch on, but I feel like what we discussed so far is enough, and we could go on for another 3 hours with the list that we have. So I think we're going to end that here.
Yeah, yeah, we got a part two showing up, and we need to kind of remember where this left off so that we don't
Yes.
retread old ground. But yeah, we got. I didn't. I said this offline, but the unpopular black gamer 100% knew that this episode was going to go long, and
Oh, I
I
knew
didn't
it
think it
was.
was, but yeah, it 100% did, and it should have because it was a fun conversation. But at the same time, we gotta move on with our lives and let the unpopular explorers go. And you're gonna have a hell of a time trying to edit this down with the bleeps and.
I think I can edit this down to an hour and a half. But with that
But oh
being
man,
said, I appreciate everybody who came to listen to our conversation today about the useless character in Star Trek. Like I said, we have some future hard hitting episodes that we definitely wanted to discuss and go into. So I hope y'all come around for that. And please, please, like, subscribe, give us comments on how you feel about what we said. If you have a topic that you feel like that we should discuss, please feel free to give us that comment and like let us know how we're doing. Like we're not above changing things to better better fit the audience that's listening in. So
I mean, I'm above it, but it's not my show, so.
I always take critiques. There's no such thing as being perfect. I always take critiques. So, of course, with that being said, we're going to end the episode with the normal famous quote that we always hear from Captain Picard.
It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life.
Once again, I appreciate y'all for coming by. Y'all have a wonderful day and join us next time. Thank you.